Chapter 1816. Chirp chirp. The three Bifong beasts in the nest on the tree went berserk when they sensed Ziya's presence from afar and noticed the bird killer approaching. The three beautiful Bifong beasts surrounded the tree. Their emerald red feathers were burning with emerald red divine fire. A heat wave that filled the sky and earth pressed down on the air, making it hard for people to breathe. The faces of the three people from Ziya's family had already turned incredibly pale. Among the three of them, Ziya had just awakened her power and was only a low-level middle-stage warrior. Ziya, Bar, and the Master were slightly better. They had already reached the peak of the middle level, but they were still some distance away from reaching the higher level. They could not be compared to the Bifong beasts, not to mention the three Bifong beasts. But at that moment, the young man wrapped in beast skin drew his bow. The bowstring was like a full moon, and he shot 3 arrows in succession. Bang, bang, bang. The three of them seemed to have heard 3 thunderous sounds. The arrows were like thunder. 3 rays of dark light pierced through the sky. The 3 Bifong beasts that flew up from the tree fell down. Shik shik. They could not fight back. They did not even have time to cry out. The 3 Bifong beasts fell down. Bang, bang, bang. 3 huge pits were formed on the ground. Qin Feng drew back his bow and pulled back his bow. He did it in one breath. Ziya and the other 2 stared at the scene in a daze. They were still in a dream. The Bifong beasts that were like the god of death to Ziya's family were like normal chickens in the hands of such a powerful warrior. All right, let's hurry up and deal with these 3 Bifong beasts. There are still a few eggs in the nest on the tree. We can take them together. Those eggs will not lose to high-grade spirit fruits. But we have to be quick. The Bifong beasts here are all descendants of a pure-blooded divine bird. This mountain range is also the territory of that pure-blooded ancient ferocious bird. If we're late, we might be in trouble. Qin Feng looked indifferent as he looked into the depths of the mountain range in the distance. A pure-blooded Bifong, an ancient ferocious beast? The 3 of them shuddered and immediately came to their senses. The 3 of them discussed. Ziya, Bar, and the Master went forward to deal with the corpses of the 3 Bifong beasts while Ziya went to get the eggs. Within a short period of time, the group slowly left the forest. Qin Feng brought up the rear with a thoughtful look in his eyes. He wondered if he should lure the pure-blooded Bifong over. However, he immediately shook his head. Going too far was as bad as not going far enough. Perhaps the sudden appearance of an elite warrior from the Yanqing clan would make people feel surprised, but they would not suspect anything. However, if an immemorial elite warrior that could easily kill a pure-blooded Bifong had suddenly appeared from the southern Zhang mansion, most likely it would attract attention. Half a year later in the Ziya tribe, in the majestic ancestral hall of the Ziya clan. A few months ago, the Ziya clan had given birth to 2 high-level experts in succession, and their territory had expanded by half. The Ziya clan's ancestral temple had also increased in number. In the tribe, on the wide flat ground, there were many childish shouts. In the morning light, a group of teenagers between the ages of 6 and 15 or 16 were eating their arms and sweating on a few wide rocks. Many of the adult clansmen and women were reclaiming wasteland, planting fruits and trees, or planting grains. Many of them were fishing by the river. The dome-shaped wooden stronghold was located high up on the riverbank, near the mountains and water. It looked very peaceful. The men plowed and the women weaved. It looked very peaceful. Occasionally, one could see old people who were over 70 years old sitting under the ancient trees of the stronghold with smiles on their faces. The pain from the accident half a year ago seemed to have been completely healed. At the entrance of the stronghold, Ziya, Bar, Patriarch, and a group of warriors were reluctantly bidding farewell to 2 people. 2 months later, it was the enrollment day of the Southern Zhang Mansion's Spiritual Flame Academy. Although the Spiritual Flame Academy was not a divine demon sect, nor was it an orthodox clan, the Water Mansion Palace, or the Mountain God sect, it had the advantage of having a lower threshold. Every year, countless clans would send their talented experts to the academies set up by the clans to cultivate. These academies were all clan schools. If they succeeded, as long as their luck was not too bad, they could have a good future. If their luck was good, they might be valued by the nobles, and enter the Orthodox clan. The worst Orthodox clan was on the same scale as the Southern Zhang Mansion. It was definitely not something a small clan like the Xia clan could compare to. Entering the Orthodox clan was the first step to coming into contact with the divine demon border. This step could be said to be very important to some ambitious youths. Originally, the Xia clan did not have much confidence in the Spiritual Flame Academy. The Xia clan was originally a small clan that struggled to survive. Even surviving in the clan was difficult, let alone having the resources to nurture the clan's disciples. But the appearance of Xia later ignited the flames of hope in Xia and Bar. With the help of the Baifeng beast's blood essence and awakening the clan's spirit fire, Xia's talent now did not lose to some of the big clans and even the geniuses of the royal families. If that was all, it would be fine. After all, the Xia clan was far away from the Southern Zhang Mansion. Two high-level warriors might not be able to send Xia safely to the Southern Zhang Mansion. But with this powerful expert in front of him, sending Xia to the Southern Zhang Mansion for the test was a piece of cake. Even though they had been in contact for half a year, Xia and Bar still had the most sincere respect for Qin Feng. "Sir, I'll leave my son to you." "Young Empress, the journey to the Southern Zhang Mansion is long and dangerous. You have to listen to my orders. Don't act recklessly. Poor parents. Don't worry, clan leader. I'll take care of this boy for you. In a few years, I'll return a peerless expert to the Xia clan." Qin Feng nodded slightly and cast a glance at Xia, whose eyes were slightly red. After half a year of interaction and with Qin Feng's conscious guidance, Qin Feng had completely become a member of the Xia clan. In order to recruit Qin Feng, this powerful expert, Xia, Bar, the Patriarch, and the others were even more eager to do so. To the outside world, they even announced that this senior of the Yunqin clan was a powerful expert of the previous generation of the Xia clan who had been wandering outside. They wanted to use this to suppress the other tribes and even the ferocious beasts in the area. At that moment, Qin Feng could still feel a strange, indistinct power connected to his eternal life matrix. It was like the mouth of a spring, continuously providing clear water. This time, he could be considered to have hitched a ride with the Xia clan when he went to the Southern Zhang Mansion. There were countless Xia clan members under the Southern Zhang Mansion. To the Southern Zhang Mansion, the Xia clan before him was just a small part of the vast territory. Qin Feng did not take a fancy to the offerings of the Southern Zhang Mansion. He just wanted to use this opportunity to familiarize himself with this unfamiliar land. The Xia clan had limited knowledge. The Patriarch walked up and patted the boy's shoulder. "It's better to love a piece of dirt in your home than to love 1,000 taels of gold in a foreign land. Young Empress, I hope you'll be successful in your studies. You'll have to travel 10,000 miles. You must learn to think. Don't act rashly." There was a sentimental look in the Patriarch's eyes. It was rare for the Xia clan to have such a good seedling. "Go back." When he saw the reluctance on the people's faces, Qin Feng shook his head and waved his hand at them. Then, he led Xia on the journey to the Southern Zhang Mansion. Chapter 1817. The Nanzhang Mansion is an orthodox branch of the Xia clan. They are powerful and rule over countless tribes of various sizes. Other than the Nanzhang Mansion, there are 3 other branches under the Xia clan. They are all near the Zhang River. However, the Nanzhang Xia clan is famous for its fire. The other branches have merged with some foreign clans and have their own specialties. Throughout the ages, our Xia clan has always produced many strong individuals. Every single one of them has become an innate god. In the forest, comparing the Xia clan's ancestral map, which was actually very simple, Xia's proud introduction could be heard from time to time. Carrying a simple revenge made of animal skin, a water gourd on his waist, and a bow and arrow on his back, Xia was in high spirits. The young man was always full of enthusiasm. Even after crossing mountains for a few days, his excitement, anticipation, and enthusiasm could not be extinguished. Qin Feng raised his eyebrows when he heard about the innate gods. Although this land was uncivilized, its cultivation system was indeed quite advanced. Lord Qin Feng My father, you are very strong. I'm afraid you are one of the best among the immemorial level experts. I'm afraid you will enter the king level soon. In the future, you will most likely become a famous origami. Speaking of the origami, Zia's eyes lit up. In his knowledge, the origami was the realm that could be seen. As for the innate gods, they belonged to the legends. After ordinary people awaken the clan's power, they would usually become low-level warriors. However, even low-level warriors were divided into beginner, middle, high, and pinnacle. Above a low-tier warrior were the middle-tier warrior, high-tier warrior, ancient tier, immemorial tier, king tier, emperor tier, overlord tier, and origami tier. In the Zia clan, it was rumored that the strongest upper echelon was the ancient existence of the origami realm. As for the innate gods, they were existences after the origami. In the land, they were legendary existences. This division was a little unfamiliar. It was different from the countless surface worlds that Qin Feng had experienced. However, in Qin Feng's opinion, there was no change in the essence. The king level here was almost equivalent to achieving immortality. It corresponded to the lower, middle, and upper gods. The 3 levels of origami corresponded to the 3 levels of Master God, God King, and Supreme God. Innate gods, on the other hand, corresponded to eternity. In this land, some connate god fiends preferred to call themselves eternal emperors, such as the Flame Emperor, one of the origins of the Jiang clan. He was the ancient emperor that Qin Feng had encountered in the void. Given Qin Feng's current realm, he could also become an eternal emperor in this land. However, according to what Qin Feng knew, there were a lot of eternal emperors in this land. In addition, Qin Feng was almost certain that as an eternal emperor without an army, he was probably one of the weakest in terms of strength. Qin Feng looked a little dazed. At this moment, his expression changed, and his gaze turned to the depths several hundred meters away from him. He and Zia were now at the periphery of a swamp. The moist swamp was filled with all kinds of dense aerial vegetation. They grew densely in the water, and the water in the swamp had an abnormal reddish-brown color. Poisonous insects and poisonous snakes were the most common in the swamp. Thus, the two of them chose to make way for the sake of traveling. Zia then noticed Qin Feng's strange behavior. Instantly, she was startled. She closed her mouth and softly walked to Qin Feng's side and asked softly, "Lord Qin Feng, what's wrong?" "We ran into some robbers," Qin Feng said calmly. Following Qin Feng's words, swooshing sounds could be heard coming from the swamp. Rustling sounds could be heard from the dense aerial roots in the forest. A vicious gust of wind blew, and terrifying pitch-black spears shot through the air, locking onto the two of them. They were spears smeared with poison. At the same time, dozens of savages with disheveled hair charged out from the edge of the swamp, emitting a savage green light. They charged excitedly at the two of them, as if they had seen prey. It's the headhunters who have abandoned the glory of their clan. Zia's expression changed slightly, and she looked a little angry. They're treating us as prey. Qin Feng waved his sleeve, and an invisible force froze the spears in the air. Hearing Zia's words, his expression changed slightly. The headhunters were actually a race that evolved from clans that were attacked by hostile clans or scattered by ferocious beasts. Most of the clans would join other clans after their own clan had fallen. However, there were also some people who accidentally fell into the depths of the primitive jungle. In order to adapt to the environment, they would become extremely savage and aggressive. They would even hunt their own kind to fill their stomachs. These headhunters were relatively scattered at first, and they were not a threat to the other clans. However, after a powerful origami appeared in the headhunters, the situation changed. These headhunters had obtained many strange and bizarre clan abilities through worshipping the powerful origami. In the forest, it would be extremely dangerous to meet the headhunter clan. They're just some ordinary powerhouses. You do it. Qin Feng waved his sleeve, and the poisonous spears from the tree roots rolled back like a black light, taking away the lives of dozens of headhunters. As soon as he finished speaking, his body flashed, and when he appeared again, he was already at the side, on top of the big tree. He looked at his feet. There was a hint of a smile in his eyes. He could not use his great magic along the way, and it was really boring. Training a little rookie was not a bad thing. However, when he raised his head and looked at the center of the swamp in the distance, there were several rather powerful auras that were faintly discernible, monitoring the movements in this area. Qin Feng's expression was a little strange. The headhunters seemed to be moving a little too much this time. Facing two travelers who were just passing by, it should not be worth the headhunters to use such a big force. There should not be a headhunter's nest nearby. Master Qin Feng, As soon as Qin Feng left, Ziya's expression immediately changed. When he saw dozens of headhunters rushing over like wolves and tigers, he immediately became flustered. One must know that among the dozens of headhunters who rushed over, many of them were low-level warriors, and there were even one or two mid-level warriors at the level of squad leaders. After half a year of being influenced by what he saw and heard, even though he received guidance from Qin Feng, this Yanqin powerhouse, and advanced by leaps and bounds, directly advancing from a low-level warrior to a mid-level warrior, he did not have much actual combat experience. Dozens of attacks came from all directions. Ziya was in a difficult situation, and soon he was outclassed. After taking a few hits, he immediately cried out in pain. Above his head, Qin Feng put down his thoughts and shook his head as he watched this scene. In terms of strength, Ziya wasn't any weaker than these headhunter tribe barbarians. In this half a year, although he hadn't taught Qin Feng any fiend god absolute arts, his foundation was absolutely solid. Those simple martial skills were the result of Qin Feng's countless massacres. They were the foundation of many killing absolute arts. Qin Feng couldn't stand it any longer and said calmly, "Kid, didn't you want to take me as your master? Let me tell you, if you can't even beat these savages, then don't mention the matter of taking me as your master in the future." Chapter 1818. As soon as he finished speaking, Ziya's face instantly flushed red. She roared angrily, gathered her courage, and gritted her teeth as she charged forward. After mastering the Bai Fong Divine Fire, Ziya began to gain control of the rhythm and entered the best state. As a matter of fact, martial skills were honed between life and death. Any martial skills that had not been honed through life and death were just for show. On the tree, Qin Feng smiled as he saw what was happening. He blew a breath, and a clone appeared out of thin air on another branch. At the same time, his real body disappeared from the tree. He wanted to see what the headhunters were doing and why they were making such a big fuss. In the middle of the swamp, there was a piece of slightly dry black land. At this time, there were already many big holes dug out on the dry land. Hundreds of primitive headhunters wearing animal skins with green liquid smeared on their faces and bone ear studs were waving the shovels in their hands as they dug hard. On the high ground, two high-grade headhunters with strong aura were waving their whips as they shouted, dig faster. Don't be lazy. This is your chance. If anyone is lazy and delays the work, the third prince will not forgive him." Who is the third prince? He is the son of the headhunter Aragami. He is the legitimate heir of the Aragami. If you make a contribution, the third prince will reward you with anything. It will be enough for you to enjoy. The blood essence of high-grade vicious beasts, all kinds of beautiful female slaves, and even moving to Godhunter City is not impossible. With the encouragement of a high-grade warrior, the headhunters who were digging became even more enthusiastic as they dug even harder. Whoosh, whoosh. The sound of mud rolling could be heard in the swamp. It seemed to be moving at an unusually fast speed. Qin Feng's figure flew over the dense aerial roots. In the process of flying, his figure instantly turned into a mosquito and quietly approached the center of the swamp. At first glance, it seemed that countless headhunter clans in this area had been summoned. The headhunter clans were everywhere in the swamp that was 700 to 800 miles in radius. Numerous high-grade powerhouses were supervising a group of headhunter clansmen. At the same time, they looked around vigilantly. Qin Feng transformed into an inconspicuous mosquito and stopped above the head of a high-ranking warrior. After a while, he obtained some information from the high-ranking warrior's mind. Qin Feng's figure flashed, and he turned into a gust of wind. He entered the small forest at the side and revealed himself. Qin Feng looked pensive. According to the information he obtained from the high-rank warrior, it seemed that a big shot had come to God Hunter City and was looking for something in this area. At this moment, Qin Feng's expression changed. He looked behind him with a hint of surprise. His figure flashed, and like an invisible ray of light, he quietly merged with the tree trunk. A moment later, a faint and imperceptible green light flashed on the surrounding trees. Without a sound, an invisible brilliance quietly walked out from one of the ancient trees. A young but pretty girl in green clothes walked out from the trees. She looked around vigilantly, and after a while, she closed her eyes slightly. Qin Feng could clearly feel a faint invisible power on the tree. It seemed to be communicating with the surrounding trees and plants to detect the changes in the surroundings. The power that this girl had awakened seemed to be of the wood element. She could control the power of plants. Qin Feng's figure was hidden in the depths of the trees. When the energy wave emitted by the girl in green swept over him, it passed through him as if he did not notice it. After a while, a group of headhunter barbarians who were digging in the swamp was discovered by her. "It's here." Instead of being surprised, she was delighted. In the future, one of the 9 spirit pearls that will shine in the next few decades, the wood spirit orb, will be born here. Rumor has it that there is a secret palace of an immemorial expert underground. In the future, the famous godson of the 9 wilds, Yaho, gradually became known to everyone after he seized the wood spirit ore from the 3rd prince of the headhunter clan. He even soared through the sky and became one of the most famous origami of the Jiang clan. He became another unparalleled overlord of this land. The girl in green seemed to be recalling something. After a while, she became shrewd and thought to herself, "But now that I have appeared, I'm sorry. The wood spirit orb is destined not to be with Yaho. However, we still have to plan carefully. After all, the 3rd prince of the headhunter clan has invited many powerful people to seal this place." After that, the desolate god of Jui also said that he escaped the headhunter clan's pursuit after narrowly escaping death. The girl in green's eyes flickered. She did not know that there was another person above her who had a strange expression. Qin Feng looked at the girl in green, who was vigilant under the tree with a strange expression. Even though he did not use his divine soul to forcefully explore the girl's memory, he could capture all the thought waves emitted by her. "It seems that I have met someone of the same kind." Touching his chin, Qin Feng's expression was a little awkward. "The 9 wilds god. I didn't expect Yaho to have such achievements in the end. But what is the 9 spirit orb? It seems to be a key treasure." Thinking to himself, Qin Feng looked at the girl in green under his feet and felt a little strange. He had an impulse to immediately search the girl's soul. But this kind of acting was suppressed by Qin Feng. He felt that if he kept such a person of the same kind, the future journey would not be too monotonous. But if it's a treasure? With a strange expression in his eyes, Qin Feng spread out his divine thought. After a while, it swept across the bottom of the swamp. Nothing. Qin Feng was slightly stunned. But the next moment, he suddenly looked in the direction of Yaho and a trace of surprise flashed in his eyes. It really fell into the hands of Yaho. "It's really..." Murmuring, Qin Feng's figure flashed and suddenly disappeared. Under the tree, the girl in green frowned and was still calculating. At the same time, on the other side, Yaho had changed. In order to obtain the acknowledgement of Qin Feng, the teacher in her heart, Zi had also put her life on the line. After paying the price of being slashed a few times on her chest, she finally managed to kill several tens of headhunter experts who had surrounded and attacked her. When he killed one of the mid-level headhunter warriors, Yaho had an unexpected gain. He found a dark green orb from the other party's body. This habit of plucking the feathers from the wild goose and looting the corpses was learned from Qin Feng. Every time he killed a wave of enemies, he would not let go of any useful resources. Chapter 1819. Cultivation resources were precious. Any bit of resources could save one's life at a critical moment. Zia had always remembered Qin Feng's teachings. After the bead was stained with his blood, it directly entered his body. Thus, he obtained some information about the bead. The wood spirit bead, one of the 9 spirit beads nurtured by the continent's origin. On the treetops, Qin Feng's clones saw this scene, and a strange light flickered. He shared the information with his main body. The 9 spirit bead was not just an origin treasure, but also the fuse of several major events in the future, as well as the key to an extremely critical place. From the information he obtained from the girl in Green's mind, there were some things in that critical place that were extremely beneficial to his main body. Do you want to get the wood spirit bead? While he was thinking, a stream of light flashed, and the clone's expression changed. Immediately, the 2 rays of light merged into one above the treetops. Qin Feng's main body returned. After looking at Ziya under the treetops, Qin Feng's eyes flickered, and he immediately chose to temporarily watch from the sidelines. At the same time, his figure quietly became invisible. After unexpectedly obtaining the wood spirit bead, Ziya suppressed his surprise. At this moment, his expression suddenly changed. Rumble. He raised his head and looked into the distance. The high-level powerhouses of the Headhunter clan had already discovered the deaths of dozens of Headhunter clan powerhouses here and were angrily heading over. 4 or 5 high-level powerhouses came with thunderous fury, and the aura they brought only made Ziya's expression change drastically. Lord Qin Feng. Subconsciously, he looked up, but in the next moment, he was stunned. Qin Feng's figure had indeed disappeared behind the treetops. In an instant, Ziya panicked a little. At this moment, he heard a slightly mocking laugh. Kid, when a fledgling leaves the nest, it has to learn to face the wind and rain by itself. Next, you will escape the Headhunter clan's pursuit by yourself. After saying that, Qin Feng transmitted his voice again. If you can successfully escape, I will grant you an opportunity. Hearing this, Ziya's expression turned bitter. Looking at the 5 Headhunter clan powerhouses rushing over aggressively, he felt his throat dry up. After all, he was only a mid-ranked warrior. The gap between a middle-ranked warrior and a high-ranked warrior was extremely large. What are you waiting for? Run. At this moment, Qin Feng's reprimanding voice rang in his ears. The 5 high-grade experts of the Headhunter clan were already 3,000 feet away. Swish! Almost instinctively, Ziya frantically rushed out of the swamp and into the dense forest. His speed was extremely fast, and his body was surrounded by emerald red flames, like a stream of emerald red light. Little bastard, where do you think you're going? Stop! A moment later, the 5 figures behind him appeared on the battlefield. They looked at the naked Headhunter clan barbarians on the ground with ashen faces. Almost without hesitation, he rushed into the forest. Just as the 5 Headhunters rushed into the forest, a green light flashed in the forest, and the green-clothed girl silently appeared at the edge of the battlefield. Looking at the naked Headhunter clan barbarians, the green-clothed girl understood. Before her rebirth, although she was a princess of the clan due to her weak body, her status was quite low, and she had never seen the famous desolate god of the Jui wilderness. However, according to the rumors, the desolate god of the Jui wilderness had a bad habit of stealing corpses. The green-clothed girl looked at the direction where Ziya and the others fled, and she was somewhat troubled. Although she had heard that the wood spirit orb was obtained from this nameless swamp in her previous life, she did not know the specific details, nor did she know the time and place. The green-clothed girl did not see that Ziya had already obtained the wood spirit orb. Looking at the many Headhunter clan barbarians who were wantonly searching the swamp, the green-clothed girl fell into a difficult choice. Should she follow Ziya, or continue to wait and watch this group of Headhunter clan barbarians and wait for them to find the wood spirit orb? On the tree, Qin Feng looked at this scene with interest. He seemed to see a shadow of himself in the girl. Diligent scheming, just to seize the opportunity of others. He had failed, but also succeeded. However, in terms of decisiveness and scheming, this girl obviously could not compare to him, who had thousands of years of memory. Soon, the green-clothed girl made a decision. She decided to follow Zia. She thought that no matter what, the wood spirit orb would eventually fall into Zia's hands. Anyway, as long as she followed Zia, she would eventually be able to find the whereabouts of the wood spirit orb. Seeing this scene, Qin Feng smiled slightly. His figure leaped, turned into a gust of wind, and followed closely behind. Rumble. After half an hour, accompanied by a loud noise, a big hole appeared in the middle of the forest. A big black hole appeared in the middle of the forest. Being chased and beaten by the 5 Headhunter clan experts, she even suffered many fatal injuries. However, the strange thing was that Zia always recovered her battle strength at the first moment, and the more she fought, the stronger she became. The wood spirit orb contained an extremely strong life force. This kind of treasure was similar to the Xuanwu divine pellet that Qin Feng had obtained in the beginning. In terms of nourishment for the host's life force, it was even better. This was also the reason why Qin Feng and the 5 Headhunter clan experts chased after Zia. After Zia, who knew how many light injuries she suffered, just like the fate of the green-clothed girl, Zia accidentally triggered a mechanism in the forest that was on the verge of destruction, falling into the mechanism. What's going on? Why is there a big hole here? Looking at the bottomless hole filled with decaying aura, the 5 Headhunter clan experts exchanged glances with each other. Their expressions were filled with doubt. One shouldn't enter the forest. For such an ancient hole that suddenly appeared, if one entered rashly, they might not be able to obtain any benefits. 2 of us will enter. 2 of you stay behind. The remaining 1 will immediately report to the 3rd prince. I suspect that this might be the secret cavern that the 3rd prince has been searching for. One of the high-level Headhunter race powerhouses calmly gave the order. The other 4 did not have any objections. Soon after, 2 figures rushed into the hole that suddenly appeared. Of the other 3, 2 stayed behind, while the last one rushed out of the forest to report to the 3rd prince's camp. Yuchong Clan Secret Cavern. At this moment, on top of an ancient tree, the green-clothed girl's eyes trembled as she looked at the hole that suddenly appeared. Her beautiful eyes were overjoyed. Yuchong Clan was one of the clans of the Ji clan. The Ji clan was similar to the Jiang clan. They were both large clans. The origin of the Ji clan was another eternal ancient emperor that was not weaker than the Flame Emperor. According to the information that the green-clothed girl grasped, this hole that suddenly appeared was most likely the Yuchong clan's secret cavern that the desolate god of Jiuyi entered during his first fortuitous encounter. Chapter 1820. In the distant past, the Ji clan and the Jiang clan had once fought over a vast and fertile territory, resulting in countless casualties and the annihilation of countless tribes. Yu Chongshi was an expert of the Yu Chongshi clan who fell in the midst of attacking the Jiang clan. Before his death, he exhausted the last of his energy to find a hidden underground palace and buried his corpse and belongings within. In order to make it easier for his clansmen to find his corpse in the future and bring it back to the clan for burial, he hastily left behind a map before his death. However, this map was not taken away. Along with the death of the majority of the experts of the Yu Chongshi clan, it fell into a corner of the battlefield and was buried by the sandstorm until it was accidentally discovered by the 3rd prince of the Headhunter clan. According to what the green-robed girl knew, there were several treasures in this Yu Chongshi secret palace. Other than a spiritual tree nurtured by his corpse god, there was also a secret technique created by this Yu Chongshi secret palace that was of great value. This was also the thing that moved the green-robed girl the most. It was rumored that this 9-wild desolate god, Yahoo, created the world-shaking 9-wild imperial spirit technique based on the embryonic form of this secret technique. The green-robed girl glanced at the 2 experts of the Headhunter clan blocking the entrance of the cave. Her eyes flickered. The green-robed girl really wanted to be the Oriole behind the mantis stalking the cicada. However, she was certain that if Yahoo digested all the treasures in the secret palace, she would have broken through to the realm of a high-grade warrior by the time she came out. She has already benefited from it. The mantis stalking the cicada, unaware of the Oriole behind, is completely meaningless. Chi-Chi, the green-robed girl's eyes flickered with a trace of coldness. After a moment, she covered her face with a green veil and formed a seal with her hands. A sharp green light flickered from the palms of the green-robed girl. Dozens of thick and strange vines grew out from the ground at the edge of the cave. Not good. Someone is ambushing us. The two high-grade warriors of the Headhunter clan reacted quickly, but the green-robed girl was even faster. Her hand seals trembled, and dozens of thick green vines wrapped tightly around the two high-grade warriors in the blink of an eye. No! A series of shrill and terrifying screams rang out. In an instant, the green vines wrapped around him, accompanied by terrifying pleas. Bright red flowers with golden spots bloomed on the green vines. The green-clothed girl floated down from the treetops. As she withdrew her 10-finger seals, the green vines instantly retracted back into the ground. Only two ghastly white skeletons were left on the ground. As soon as they fell to the ground, they shattered into pieces. Atop an ancient tree, Qin Feng's eyes flickered with a smile when he saw this. This green-clothed girl was also a high-ranking warrior, but the combat skills she displayed were far superior to those of the same rank. She could easily take someone's life. His control over the spiritual wood could be said to be very precise. In terms of tariffs, it far exceeded Zia's. As expected of a reincarnator, Qin Feng secretly praised. Casually killing the two powerhouses of the Headhunter clan, the green-clothed girl was like crushing two ants. She was about to jump under the moon, but then a thoughtful look flashed through her beautiful eyes. Looking behind her, a sly look flashed in her eyes. With a wave of her green sleeve, hundreds of pitch-black seeds were waved out of her big sleeve and disappeared into the surroundings of the cave in an instant. A trap? On the tree, Qin Feng raised his eyebrows. This green-clothed girl was more two-faced than he had imagined. Those seeds were the seeds of some demon plants and contained a strong poison. Once someone entered the area and sensed the aura of living creatures, they would immediately take root and sprout, turning a radius of hundreds of feet into a poisonous thorny forest. If someone did not pay attention, they would inevitably suffer a great loss. After sprinkling the seeds, the green-clothed girl glanced at them, and a satisfied look flashed in her beautiful eyes. Her figure instantly jumped into the cave, but Qin Feng's divine consciousness sensed that many seeds were sprinkled wherever she passed. These seeds had their own mysteries, turning the whole harmless cave into a fatal trap in an instant. Qin Feng looked at this scene indifferently. The traps around the crypt were quickly put to use. After receiving news of the high-ranking experts of the Headhunter clan, the rumored third prince of the Headhunter clan quickly came aggressively with his guards and followers. Be careful. What is this thing? It's a trap. With the arrival of the third prince, cries and wails instantly resounded through most of the forest. The seeds of the highly poisonous demon plants buried underground were activated. The pitch-black thorny vines sensed the aura of living creatures and grew wildly. In the blink of an eye, they entangled a portion of the Headhunter clan experts who were the first to rush over. Wails, screams, and angry roars resounded throughout the morning. Almost in an instant, dozens of people were poisoned by the highly poisonous demon plants and turned into thick water. Some were also poisoned, and their skin was corroded as they screamed in pain. But in the blink of an eye, a terrifying saber light that looked like a tornado appeared in the middle of the encirclement. Wherever it passed, countless poisonous plants, including the poisoned high-ranking Headhunter warriors, were suddenly torn into pieces. Under the escort of two strangely dressed old men, a young man with a luxurious face and martial attire walked out of the storm angrily. The one who made the move was a silent and cold middle-aged man with a scar on his face and a single blade in his hand. On the right was an old man with a red-horned snake coiled around his hand. The old man wore a head ornament made of white bones. He had yellow vertical pupils and a long robe that dragged on the ground. There was a stagnant chill around him, and he looked very frightening. These two guards exuded the great majesty of the immemorial stage. The aura of the third prince far exceeded that of the green-clothed girl. After Zia, he was an ancient stage expert. It was surprising that such a young ancient stage expert was so young. At this time, the third prince's face was as gloomy as water. He looked around and saw that dozens of mid-ranking warriors had been killed in an instant. Even many of the high-grade warriors had suffered great losses. Damn it! If this prince finds out who did it, I will make him beg for death. He roared hatefully. The group soon found the bones of the two high-ranking warriors next to the cave entrance, and their faces became more and more unsightly. But looking at the cave close at hand, the third prince quickly abandoned his anger, and a trace of passion was difficult to hide. Wood Spirit Orb. This time I must get the Wood Spirit Orb. The third prince's eyes were burning with greed. Although the surname power he awakened was not of the wood attribute, if he obtained the Wood Spirit Orb, it would be like adding wings to a tiger. It would be of great benefit to him when he broke through the immemorial stage, king stage, and even emperor stage in the future. All of you, stand guard outside. A group of headhunter powerhouses immediately spread out and stood guard outside the forest. You two follow me into the secret palace. He pointed to the two guards next to him. Immediately, the three of them entered the cave, but soon, angry roars came from the cave. Chapter 1821. It was clear that the headhunter trio had suffered a great loss after jumping down. On the treetop, Qin Feng looked down at the ground. The secret palace of a primordial expert naturally couldn't pique Qin Feng's interest. He simply sat down cross-legged and waited for Zia to appear. Qin Feng was rather interested in the 9 spirit pearl. The secrets it contained were very likely to be of great benefit to him. He needed to make a good plan. Qin Feng didn't know this. Although many experts were scattered in different directions in the ancient void cave, there were still some who coincidentally entered the same place as him. The inner world was very vast, and the chances of entering the same place when entering were quite small. But the world was just so mysterious. On the shores of the Ji River, there was also a large clan, the Ji clan. The Ji clan was one of the most ancient clans and had nurtured many powerful clans. Yu, Qi, Ji, Tung, Ji, Ren, Sun, Ji Bai Bai, and Yi. Each clan was abnormally powerful. The Sun clan on the shores of the Wei River was one of them. Although the Sun clan was a branch, it wasn't weak back then. Among the 12 clans that separated from the Ji clan, its strength was around the middle, and there were many experts in the clan. It was divided into a dozen branches scattered across the plains in front of the Wei River, inhabiting the banks of the various tributaries. In one of the tributaries, a beautiful woman dressed in colorful clothes stood on a cliff, looking at the vast and boundless Wei River. The mighty flood river roared from upstream, passing through a huge waterfall that was more than 10 meters long and sloping down. Thanks to the passage of this waterfall, countless plants grew in this area. Plants were usually at the bottom of the food chain. Above them were all kinds of poisonous insects, and above them were all kinds of small vicious beasts. Many large vicious beasts fed on small vicious beasts. This was a very complete food chain. The Sun clan's branch was in the lower reaches of the food chain. They were both predators and prey for the many vicious beasts in this area of several thousand kilometers. Early in the morning, golden mist diffused from the waterfall, bringing with it a hazy feeling like an immortal realm. The ancient trees seemed to have turned a faint gold. Roar! In the forest, the hungry, ferocious beasts began to circle around the wooden village, but most of them were blocked by the surrounding traps and even the city walls. The powerful existences worshipped in the ancestral hall of the clan. Those clan experts emitted an aura unique to the strong. Although it was only a little bit of aura, it made the fierce beasts not dare to recklessly approach. Seeking luck and avoiding calamity, the law of the jungle. These were the iron rules of this vast land. The stronger the existence, the bigger the territory. In the eyes of the beasts, this was a matter of course. At the very least, the ferocious beasts would not enter the stronghold that was filled with the aura of a powerhouse before challenging him. Of course, there were always unlucky clans that encountered extremely powerful ferocious beasts on the ground. Amidst the attacks of the ferocious beasts, the people of the clans became the prey of other ferocious beasts. At this moment, several figures leaped out of the woods and landed on the edge of the rock. Rumble! The nearby waterfall roared like a thunderclap. There were several experts from the clans with extremely powerful auras. They were dressed in barbaric clothes, but they had a noble and primitive aura. They knelt down on one knee. Lord Sunji, the envoys of the upper clans have arrived. Saint Lord Colored Glaze's beautiful eyes swept across the Sun experts who knelt down on one knee. Just like Qin Feng, after Saint Master Colored Glaze descended, she also chose to integrate into one of the tribes. She entered the tribe with the identity of an expert from the tribe. After a few tricks, the name of the Sun concubine of the Sun clan quickly spread to the surrounding main Sun clan. Saint Lord Colored Glaze's expression did not change as she looked at the torrential waterfall in front of her. Entering the Sun clan was only the first step. The next step was to enter the upper echelons of the Ji clan. She had to obtain the worship of the Ji clan. The Ji clan was one of the most ancient clans. As long as she could obtain the worship of the 14 high-grade clans, she would be much stronger than the Colored Glaze heavenly region. His eyes flashed with an indescribable light. Gantian, Pangu, destruction, Manhuang. Saint Lord Colored Glaze murmured in her heart as she chewed on these words. Her eyes were cold. Saint Lord Colored Glaze would never forget the tragic experience of the Colored Glaze heavenly region. Millions of years of operation, a portion of the confidants who lived with her day and night were all destroyed by the combined forces of the 4 superdomain lords. The 4 of you, just you wait. You would never have thought that there would be an inner world that is bigger than the surface world in the ancient void cave. When my cultivation is strong enough, I will return everything you have given me 100 times, 1,000 times. Saint Lord Colored Glaze's heart was cold. She looked up, but there was a trace of inexplicable gloominess in her beautiful eyes. If she had not lost the Colored Glaze heavenly region and reached the 3rd level of the eternal realm, she would not have had to advance step by step. She could have gone up directly and defeated the Ji clan god to replace him as the emperor of this clan. According to her understanding, this inner world was very strange. It had an extremely strong suction force. Any experts of the surface world who fell into the inner world could not get out. Unless they obtained the title of emperor, became the clan god, and obtained the karmic rank of heaven and earth, they could counteract the suction force and leave the inner world. No matter what, she had to obtain the position of emperor of a gathering area. Turning around, Saint Lord Colored Glaze's beautiful eyes swept across the few experts of the Sun clan who were kneeling on one knee. She turned into a 7-colored stream of light and flew into the depths of the forest, rushing towards the residence of the Sun clan. Seeing this, the few experts of the Sun clan dared to stand up. Looking at the direction where Saint Lord Colored Glaze left, they glanced at each other and rushed to catch up. In the swamp, there was an intense battle in the underground secret palace. Using the terrain and the secret technique of Yuchong clan, the 9 godly arts, Zia became the final winner. Whether it was the 3rd prince of the Headhunter clan, his 2 guards, or the green-robed young lady, they were all fooled by the complicated terrain and mechanisms in the underground palace. After confirming that the pursuers could not catch up in a short period of time, Zia used the back door of the secret palace to leave the swamp and the forest. Hong Long Long. As the stone door on a mountain wall opened, Zia flashed out from behind a mountain wall. He clapped his hands and looked behind him proudly. Do you think you can catch me just because you have an immemorial level expert? Dream on. He snorted. At this moment, the aura on his body had strengthened by a lot. He had reached the realm of a high-level warrior. What was special was that there was no fluctuation in his foundation. But in the next moment, his expression changed. He raised his head and saw a familiar figure outside the cave. Chapter 1822. Lord Qin Feng. Zia was startled, his face filled with disbelief. What kid? You seem to be very surprised. Qin Feng turned around, looking at Ziya with a faint smile. "Kid, your vision is still a bit too low." With a curl of his lips, Qin Feng sneered. Ziya's heart shook, but soon after, a hint of joy appeared on his face. Ever since Qin Feng helped him comprehend the power of serene, as well as his half a year of guidance, he had already treated Qin Feng as the person he trusted the most. Even though Qin Feng's background was mysterious, he believed that Qin Feng would definitely not harm him. "Lord, this time I obtained quite a few good things. Look, on the slope." Ziya took out some treasures he obtained from the cave. An ancient sword, a beast-skin secret scroll, 2 purple-black spiritual fruits, and with spiritual bead were also taken out. He looked at Qin Feng as if he was an eager young man waiting for praise and affirmation. In the Ziya tribe, the young man had already proven himself, obtaining the affirmation of his tribe members, even his father, Yabale, and the Patriarch. But for the young man Ziya, what he hoped for the most was to obtain the acknowledgement of this Yinqin expert, who was both his teacher and father. However, this Yinqin expert's vision was not ordinary. Qin Feng's gaze first landed on the ancient sword, shaking his head indifferently. A broken sword? Ziya's expression froze. Then he smiled bitterly. This ancient sword was not a broken sword, but one of the famous ancient swords of the Chong clan, Absolute Ground Sword. It was extremely sharp, and it had an extremely powerful defensive ability. Such a rare weapon, even among the countless tribes under the Ziya clan, could be counted with one's fingers. Purple caltrop fruit, able to nourish the soul. This is not bad, but it has too many impurities. His gaze landed on the 2 purple-black fruits. Qin Feng shook his head again. His gaze landed on Ziya's body, making Ziya feel a bit awkward. "Since you only ate one, you can use your natal spiritual fire to purify it for a short period of time." "Kid, you're smart." Ziya's forehead was covered in sweat. In fact, he had originally planned to swallow all 3 purple caltrop fruits in one go. The purple caltrop fruit had the miraculous effect of nourishing the soul. If it weren't for the Lord in front of him, he probably would have refined it all in one go. Keep this in a box made of spiritual wood. Before you break through to the ancient rank, don't refine the remaining 2 or it will affect your foundation. Hearing this, Ziya nodded her head like a chick pecking at rice. At this moment, the pride in his heart from obtaining a treasure had completely dissipated. At the same time, Qin Feng used his divine power to create a jade box out of thin air. He took it out of his sleeve and threw it to Ziya. Ziya hurriedly caught the jade box and put away the 2 purple caltrop fruits. Qin Feng's gaze fell on the secret scroll. He casually picked it up and scanned it with his divine sense. A hint of surprise flashed in his eyes. 9 godly arts, 9 tasks at the same time. This is a pretty good secret art, but it's not perfect yet. Don't practice it rashly. Otherwise, you'll easily lose your mind and die. You'll need some medicinal herbs to practice it. You can try it. Once you've mastered this art, you'll no longer have a problem challenging those of a higher rank. Nodding slightly, Qin Feng casually put down the secret scroll. Hearing Qin Feng's evaluation, Ziya was overjoyed and happily put away the secret scroll. Memorize it quickly and burn it, Qin Feng instructed. Yes. Ziya's expression turned serious. Qin Feng's gaze finally fell on the wood spirit orb. A hint of surprise flashed in his eyes. He could feel the preciousness of this spiritual orb. Refining a spiritual treasure nurtured by this continent was equivalent to gaining the worship of countless tribes. It was comparable to the worship of the Lord of a divine territory. Ziya really trusted him after that, and she actually took out this treasure. He looked at Ziya. This spiritual orb is very precious. It will be of great help to your future cultivation. Don't take it out in the future. Don't tell anyone, even those closest to you. With a wave of his hand, the wood spirit orb turned into a stream of light and entered Ziya's body. Seeing Qin Feng's solemn expression for the first time, Ziya's expression shook. Then he nodded fiercely. Of course, he knew the principle of not showing off one's wealth. He just didn't expect this orb to be so important. What made him feel the most was that this Yinqin Lord didn't have the slightest bit of greed, especially that invisible protective heart. It made Zia's heart surge with warmth. Qin Feng saw the young man's expression and shook his head slightly. A single wood spirit bead was of no use to him. Besides, he hoped to gather the other 8 spiritual orbs with the help of Zia. Let's go. We'll continue forward. Seeing Zia put away the treasure, Qin Feng gestured slightly. He immediately took the lead and continued forward. At this time, they were still tens of thousands of miles away from the southern Zhang mansion. Along the way, they were mostly primitive mountain ridges. They might pass by the territories of more than 10 tribes. At this time, the harsh winter was about to arrive. In the harsh winter of the primitive mountain range, it was exceptionally cold. The cold wind whistled and white snow fell from the sky, gradually covering the forest. If an ordinary person were to walk on the snow, it would be very easy for them to lose their life due to hypothermia. Fortunately, Zia had become a high-ranking warrior and had mastered the power of fire. He could walk for a long time in the snow, but his speed was still slowed down. After a few days, a thick layer of snow had accumulated on the road. The thick snow reached his waist, and every step he took was exceptionally difficult. Under a rock halfway up the mountain, the two had already set up a shelter in the evening. At this time, the trees with wide leaves had withered. Qin Feng didn't use his divine power. He simply found some dry branches from the surroundings. Crackle. This simple shelter wasn't gorgeous, but it was definitely warm. The fire seemed to disperse all the cold. On the branches, there was a stone pot that was simply made of stone. It was boiling. In the snow, one couldn't drink ice and snow directly. In the deep mountains and forests, doing so would lower one's body temperature. The more one ate, the colder it would get. In the evening, Zia caught a few small beasts, skinned them, and roasted them on a wooden rack. Although there was no seasoning, the fresh smell of meat was already shining. Sitting cross-legged on the side, Zia was already drooling. On the side, Qin Feng closed his eyes. His divine consciousness seemed to be one with the surrounding snow and ice. An invisible change was happening to his body. After such a long journey, he felt a kind of cleansing in the depths of his soul. Along the way, from the spirit sea world to the eldritch world, and then to the mutated giant world, his state of mind was tense almost every moment. This kind of relaxation was extremely rare. It seemed that his state of mind had become empty. In this state, it was as if his divine soul had become pure, and countless profound mysteries were being analyzed by him, as if they were water flowing through a canal. Chapter 1823. In this pure state of mind, especially in the control of the eternal true thunder, Qin Feng felt that he had advanced by leaps and bounds, and a lot of inspiration came to his mind. He had comprehended many mysteries of the 4th level of the eternal secret technique, and was rapidly approaching the peak of the 5th level of the eternal secret technique. But this feeling only lasted for a few moments, and soon it faded away. Crackle, crackle. The sound of burning resin resounded in his ears. Qin Feng opened his eyes silently. Zia, who was on the side, saw this scene and was slightly stunned. Qin Feng had given her the feeling of a supreme expert before, but now she felt that he was a bit like an ordinary person. At this moment, Qin Feng did not run the secret method or take the initiative to restrain his momentum. Uncle Qin, congratulations. Your cultivation has gone further. Zia, who was on the side, immediately reacted and said excitedly, "What is your current cultivation level?" Qin Feng glanced at Zia, who was sitting over with her hips swaying, and shook his head slightly. "You will know in the future." With a faint smile, Qin Feng felt the changes in the depths of his divine soul. His eyes flashed with a faint brilliance. Perhaps he should take advantage of this time to relax in Nanzhang Mansion. Maintaining this relaxed state of mind was extremely beneficial for him. If he was just an ordinary expert of the eternal realm who had just entered the 2nd realm of the eternal realm, now he was approaching the title of Lord of Heaven. Only a small number of supreme experts in the 2nd realm of the eternal realm had this privilege. This kind of progress was exhilarating. Qin Feng was even more excited than getting the karmic rank of heaven and earth and the change of the eternal fate. In the dark night, it was still snowing heavily. Fortunately, the shelter above his head was strong enough. However, he could not relax at night. Otherwise, if the fierce beasts approached him in such a remote place, he would not have a good time. After eating and drinking to her heart's content, Zia sat cross-legged and began to practice breathing. In such a cold environment, the fire chi in a body would be tempered to the greatest extent. Replacing sleep with practice was very uncomfortable in the early stage, but it was very good for exercising one's will. Under Qin Feng's supervision, Zia had gradually adapted to this habit. Qin Feng faintly looked at a forest not far away with a trace of a strange smile in his eyes. In a dense forest, somewhere 1 meter underground, strange green vines wrapped around the ground, forming a tightly wrapped bird's nest in the snow. The green-clothed girl sat cross-legged in the nest. The tree vines could keep one warm. Dozens of tree vines were rooted in the ground, providing enough space so that one wouldn't feel stuffy. Most importantly, it was hidden in the snow and was not in harmony with the vicious beasts in the mountains. After being tricked into Yu Chong clan's secret palace, not only was the third prince of the Hunter clan unwilling to let the matter rest, the green-robed young lady was also secretly tailing the two behind Zia. There were a few times when the green-clothed girl wanted to kill her and steal her treasures, but she hesitated. Queen Zia's strength was not bad, especially when there was an expert beside her who looked like an expert. The green-clothed girl was confident that she could take down Queen Zia, but not Qin Feng. Especially on the way, the girl in green saw several times that Zia was trying to curry favor with Qin Feng. She was completely respectful to the bones. This made the green-clothed girl think of a legendary existence. According to desolate god of Jiuyi, Zia had revealed a few times in public he had a teacher. The teacher of desolate god of Jiuyi was extremely mysterious. Before her rebirth, although the green-clothed girl was a princess of a tribe, her cultivation was ordinary, and she didn't know the core secrets. She only heard that the mysterious teacher of desolate god of Jiuyi was extremely terrifying. Even in the Jiang clan, his position was very prominent, comparable to the strongest ancient emperors. This made the green-clothed girl fearful. The green-clothed girl cherished her life very much, especially after her rebirth. She knew many secrets. Rather than that, she might as well let the third prince of the Hunter clan do it. In the green-clothed girl's mind, the third prince would die soon anyway. Sha. At this moment, the green-clothed girl's expression changed. At this moment, the tree vines had turned into a snowball buried in the ground, completely covering her traces. Outside the forest, a snow-white giant wolf silently appeared in the forest. The giant wolf's eyes were green, with a hint of coldness. Beside the giant wolf, the Hunter clan experts wearing simple animal skins and bone ear studs appeared. As soon as these experts appeared, the green-clothed girl's heart trembled. The aura of more than 10 high-ranking warriors and 2 ancient rank experts, concealed like heavenly snakes, abnormally terrifying. Silently, more than 100 giant wolves walked in the snow. They had black and white fur on their feet, and there was no sign of life when they leaped. Feeling these giant wolves approaching, the green-clothed girl felt a chill in her heart. In the snow, if a high-ranking expert was targeted by these giant wolves, they would probably die without a burial place. A hungry tiger was afraid of a pack of wolves. If her aura was exposed, she would probably die. This time, the continuous heavy snow for several days helped the girl in green clothes. The snow that was up to 2 meters thick perfectly covered the existence of the underground green rattan nest. Although the giant wolves had a keen sense of smell, they couldn't find the green-clothed girl 1 or 2 meters under the snow and wrapped in green vines. After Zia, Qin Feng and Li Yundong built their shelter at the bottom of the hill. This way they could block the cold wind. The hill blocked their vision, and with the howling cold wind at night, Zia didn't notice that more than 100 Hunter clan experts were already hundreds of meters away. However, They couldn't hide from Qin Feng's spiritual perception. On the soft and warm dry branch, Qin Feng suddenly opened his eyes. The fire next to him was still burning slowly, and the fragrance of the branches filled the air. Ziya sat cross-legged on the other side. Under the light of the fire, he sat cross-legged. As he breathed in and out, a fiery red light appeared between his brows. It seems that I still have to do it. Qin Feng shook his head. His eyes moved as he looked at the endless snowflakes in the sky. He blew a breath, and at a speed visible to the naked eye, it expanded on the hill in front of the shelter in an instant, turning into a huge, furry, terrifying beast. The figure was dozens of stories tall. It was like a pair of arms that could push away the clouds and pluck the moon. It looked like a giant ape with snow-colored hair. This was an ancient beast that appeared in extremely cold places, the snow demon. In the forest, the green-clothed girl witnessed this tragedy with her own eyes. The headhunter experts who had sworn to ambush the two behind Ziya had unexpectedly encountered a terrifying snow succubus that had passed by. All of them had been reduced to snacks under the snow succubus's gaping maw. Today, a WeChat public account was opened. Interested readers can directly search the public account, Imperfect Heaven and Earth, to follow. There are a lot of published data about this book by the author, as well as all kinds of short stories. Readers might be able to see themselves in some of the published information. Chapter 1824. That snow demon was a wisp of ice essence that had been transformed by Qin Feng's breath. It was not an illusion, but a real primordial ferocious beast. After eating more than 100 giant wolves and a group of headhunter elites in one go, it was already half full. It let out a burp, and the girl in green could clearly feel that the giant snow demon was looking at the place where she was hiding. A trace of disdain flashed across those ferocious eyes. It had discovered me. The girl in green's expression changed greatly. But to her relief, although the snow demon had discovered her hiding place, it had probably already run away. With a whistle, it turned into a cold wind and disappeared into the forest. But looking in the direction that the snow demon had left, the girl in green felt as if her whole body was soaked in cold sweat. Primordial ferocious beasts were extremely ferocious. If she was caught, she would not be able to escape death even if she had various secret techniques of the Gomon clan. On this cold night, the girl in green once again experienced the ruthlessness of this vast and boundless forest. The girl in green was in a daze. She would remember this day for a long time. She had almost become a snack in the mouth of the snow demon. At the foot of the mountain, Qin Feng saw the frightened girl in green. He smiled and closed his eyes again. Beside him, Ziya's breathing was even. A ball of fiery red light was faintly visible on his forehead, but he did not notice any movement hundreds of meters away from the mountain. It was as if this night was the same as any other night. Qin Feng glanced at him and was somewhat dissatisfied. His vigilance was still lacking. He wondered if he should find a chance to teach Ziya a lesson. The next morning, beside the fire, Ziya exhaled a long breath. Vaguely, the breath that he exhaled carried traces of incomparably hot flames. Wherever it passed, a large puddle of ice and snow was melted. Ziya looked at this scene. He was first startled, but then there was a hint of joy in his eyes. He had become a little stronger again. For a youth who had lived in a clan since young, becoming stronger was almost engraved in the depths of his soul. Like the ferocious beasts in the mountains, becoming stronger was almost an instinct. Only by becoming stronger could he ensure that he would not be eaten by stronger existences and protect his home. The cold wind was biting cold. Looking at Qin Feng, who seemed to be sleeping soundly, Ziya got up and walked toward the outside of the shelter. He had set up some traps in the surrounding mountains last night. Hopefully, he would be able to gain something from those traps. At the very least, he wouldn't be hungry in the morning. If he had a few small, ferocious beasts, he would have enough for breakfast. After Ziya left, Qin Feng flipped over and jumped up from the soft tree branch. He looked in the direction where Ziya left and smiled. In the sanctuaries, Ziya woke up from her sleep. In a cave not too far away, the third prince of the headhunters, Lai Dong, looked ferocious. As soon as he woke up, he received bad news. Early in the morning, when the two guards realized that the Snow Wolf clan had not returned all night, they went to investigate. Unfortunately, they discovered that the Snow Wolf clan had been completely annihilated. The forest was covered with the bones of many snow wolves. They were the bones that had been abandoned after being devoured by extremely ferocious and terrifying beasts. In the snow, the bones were piled up and there were faint traces of blood. The two Archean guards came to a conclusion. The Snow Wolf clan was unlucky. Before they could do anything to the two people, they had encountered a terrifying Archean beast. This news made Lai Dong fly into a rage. He could only curse Ziya. Qin Feng and Ziya were too lucky. He clamored that he would do it himself and send two Archean guards to kill the two people. However, the two Archean experts had a different opinion. The two suspected that Ziya, who had taken the wood spirit orb, might have an extraordinary identity and might have someone backing her. Throughout the morning, the cave was filled with arguments. In the sanctuaries, Ziya, who had gone out to check the traps in the morning, quickly returned. The traps gave him a lot of surprises. A huge thorny dolphin with a sharp mouth was carried on his shoulders. But Ziya did not come back alone. A girl in green came with him. Uncle Qin, this is Luo Chang, an elite from the Luo clan of the Jiang clan. What a coincidence. She is also going to Nanjiang Mansion to participate in the Spirit Flame Academy trial. Just nice, we can travel together. With a thump, the thorny dolphin that weighed several hundred kilograms fell to the ground. Ziya introduced the pretty girl in green with great enthusiasm. To be able to meet such a beautiful girl on such a boring journey, and she was also an elite from another tribe who was going to Nanjiang Mansion with him, made him very excited. Of course, it was also because his teenage hormones were starting to swell. In short, Ziya's mood was very complicated along the way. She was happy, surprised, 666. Qin Feng glanced at the excited Ziya. This fool didn't know that he had personally brought a little fox with evil intentions into his home. Greetings, Senior Qin Feng. I heard from Big Brother Ziya that Senior Qin Feng is very powerful and is one of the top elites in Nanjiang Mansion. Seeing you today, you are indeed worthy of respect. Luo Chang was very good with words. Her smile was like a flower, and her voice was soft. Her words made people feel comfortable. If it was an ordinary person, their heart might have floated after hearing her words. In the morning, after experiencing yesterday's thrilling experience, Luo Chang finally made up her mind. She wanted to mingle with Ziya, the future desolate god of the Jui wilderness. This way, it would be convenient for her to snatch some opportunities from him in the future. At the very least, she could capture him and make him her subject. Qin Feng glanced at Ziya, who was scratching her head and giggling foolishly. He secretly shook his head. In terms of scheming, the slightly immature Ziya was not Luo Chang's opponent at all. Little girl, your words are quite nice. You really know how to talk. Qin Feng's expression was indifferent. However, since we were going to Nanjiang Mansion, let's go together. Luo Chang had been quietly sizing up Qin Feng. She was comparing Qin Feng with the people in her memory, trying to connect the voice and appearance of some elites with him. However, the girl in green did not find any information about elites who looked similar to Qin Feng. Who is this person? Is he a nobody? The girl in green thought to herself. However, she immediately shook her head. Given Ziya's respect for Qin Feng, he could not be a nobody. In the memories of the future desolate god of the Jui wilderness, this elite should be a very important existence. Could it be the ancient emperor? The girl in green was shocked when she thought of the legend. Despite the drastic changes in her heart, the girl in green still had a smile on her face. Suddenly, she felt a chill run down her spine. She hurriedly raised her head and saw the elite that Ziya called Uncle Qin looking at her with a strange gaze. Chapter 1825. The dark eyes seemed to see through her internal organs. Past and present life, and even all the thoughts in her heart were suddenly exposed in front of him. This kind of gaze made the girl in green feel shocked and embarrassed at the same time. For a moment, The girl in green almost thought that the secret of being reborn was completely exposed in front of this pair of eyes. But fortunately, the owner of the pair of eyes instantly looked away. Just this one glance caused the girl in green to be in a trance for the entire morning. Zia didn't understand what was going on. She just felt that the girl in green seemed to have suddenly become strange. But the girl in green was very tenacious and quickly recovered. But she was indeed a bit more afraid of Qin Feng and almost instinctively avoided him. In the morning, the three started their journey again. It was not easy to walk in the wind and snow. The winter snow was very thick and soft. They had the strength of serene, so they walked slowly. But the surrounding mountains were covered in white snow and were prone to avalanches. Especially in the snow, there were some powerful, ferocious beasts that often appeared. Qin Feng took the lead, followed by Ziya. The green-clothed girl, Luo Chang, walked side by side. The green-clothed girl walked briskly, but in her heart, she was thinking about other things. In my memory, the divine son of the Zhui wilderness, Yeho, seemed to have several major events that affected his life. The pursuit of the headhunter tribe was only one of them. Next should be the rebellion of the Chunyu tribe. The Chunyu tribe of the Jiang clan is an unremarkable tribe among the small tribes. But no one would have thought that the Chunyu tribe actually hid a huge opportunity. An extremely powerful existence once appeared in this tribe. He was a very famous expert in the upper echelon of the Jiang clan. If you obtain the token of this tribe, you can directly enter the Heavenly Sacred Hall and obtain the favor of an expert of the Heavenly Sacred Hall. As everyone knew, the Zia tribe was one of the tribes under the control of the Zhongshui Divine Palace. In addition to the Zia tribe, there were also the Gaodang tribe, the Yongmen tribe, and dozens of other tribes under the control of the Zhongshui Divine Palace. As one of the 12 divine palaces of the Jiang clan, the territory under the Zhongshui Divine Palace was undoubtedly huge. The Tianxing Hall was one of the 4 halls of the Zhongshui Divine Palace. The Nanzhang Manor looked huge, but it was only a small corner of the Tianxing Palace. Usually, after the disciples of the Spiritual Flame Academy finished their apprenticeship, they would enter various places in the southern Zhang Prefecture. They would either become mountain guards or ambassadors of the southern Zhang Prefecture. They would either become the representatives of the southern Zhang Prefecture or become a grassroots expert who ruled over countless tribes. All in all, this was a pretty good outcome. This was the dream of countless youths from the tribes who came to the Nanzhang Prefecture. They were above countless tribes and had countless experts fawning on them. Once they entered Nanzhang Manor, they would no longer have to worry about being harassed by ferocious beasts. However, in the eyes of the green-clothed girl, becoming a middle-level official was just so. However, if one could enter the middle level of a hall, that would be incredible. That was because the experts among the hall masters could be said to be very important. Every expert who had entered the hall level could shake mountains and rivers with a single word. Their casual words would cause countless experts to analyze, guess, and even think of ways to curry favor with them. The Gomon clan, where the green-clothed girl came from, had been able to prosper because experts who held positions above the hall level were born in the tribe every once in a while. If one could enter the Heavenly Sacred Palace after finishing their apprenticeship and become an expert, such an opportunity was definitely a dream come true, especially for someone like Zia, who had no backing to speak of. As the princess of the Gomon clan, even the green-clothed girl herself might not have the opportunity to enter the hall level after finishing her apprenticeship, unless one could defeat the strongest geniuses of the Gomon clan. One might be able to gain the favor of the ancestors of the Gomon clan and enter the hall level in advance. This would really save them a few hundred years of hard work. Should I take this opportunity to seize this opportunity? The green-clothed girl was eager to try. The keepsake of a hall's expert was a huge temptation even for her. Uncle Qin, come and see. A few days later, on an early afternoon behind the forest, a cry of surprise sounded from behind the forest. 2 figures flashed past like phantoms. They instantly appeared in the depths of the forest. A green light appeared, and the green-clothed girl looked at the trap in front of her, a strange glint in her beautiful eyes. In the snow, a deep pit with a radius of several meters appeared. It was a large pit that Zia had dug last night and was specially used to hunt prey. Inside the pit, there were many strange herbs of various colors that were specially used to paralyze the prey. At this moment, a girl in linen clothes was lying in the pit, her body stained with blood. She was lying on her side, and her appearance could not be seen clearly. At this moment, the girl in linen clothes had already fainted. On the side, there were some footprints that contained blood. Clearly, the girl in linen clothes was injured and then fell into the trap set by Zia. Zia stood at the side of the pit, looking a little helpless. He had used a trap to trap someone. At the side, the green-clothed girl looked a little pensive as she looked at the girl in linen clothes in the pit. This was probably the beginning of another fortuitous encounter for Zia. Uncle Chin. Zia looked at Chin Feng as if asking for help. Chin Feng was a little speechless. After a moment, he saw Zia's helpless look, and he could not help but shout, "What are you standing there for? Hurry up and carry her out." Oh! Zia woke up from a dream and quickly jumped into the trap. Carrying the girl in the trap, he jumped into the snow at the side. Zia's face was a little red. The girl's figure was excellent, and her breasts were extremely plump. The young boy and girl's skin rubbed against each other, making Zia's heart beat faster. Putting the girl in linen clothes down, Zia felt her pulse and was stunned. He looked up at Chin Feng. "Uncle, she's almost out of breath." Of course, she's almost out of breath. She was already seriously injured, and after falling into your trap and being frozen for a night, it's already a miracle that she could hold on until now. Chin Feng glanced at Zia with an indifferent expression. "Uncle, what should we do now?" Zia was anxious. Looking at the girl in linen clothes on the ground, he could not hide his annoyance. The girl in linen clothes looked to be about 14 or 15 years old and was extremely beautiful. Even the green-clothed girl, Luo Chong, felt a wave of jealousy. Although she was not inferior to the girl in linen clothes in terms of looks, her chest was flat. Compared to the girl in linen clothes' bulging chest, she could not hide her displeasure. Seeing Zia's unconcealable concern, she could not help but ask, "What else can we do? Bury her." Hearing this, Zia's expression changed greatly. "There's no need to bury her." Chin Feng stepped forward and glanced at the girl in linen clothes. "She can still be saved. Carry her back." Chapter 1826. Camp beside the bonfire. Zia then gently placed the linen-clothed girl on the soft and slightly fragrant cedar branch and looked at Chin Feng. The green-clothed girl, Luo Chong, appeared in the camp and looked at Chin Feng. The girl in linen clothes, in her opinion, even the strongest experts of the Gomon clan wouldn't be able to save him. The girl was already heavily injured and had fallen into a trap. After being frozen for an entire night, she was on her last breath. "What are you standing there for? Didn't you notice the enemy?" Chin Feng glanced at Zia and Luo Chong, who were standing beside him. Enemy. Both of their expressions changed. Immediately, he tilted his head to listen carefully. Instantly, his gaze looked outside the forest. Half a mile away, he could clearly hear a strange sound. A figure appeared in the vast snow. "Is it the Bull tribe?" The green-clothed girl glanced at Zia. When Zia obtained this opportunity from the Chunyu tribe, the tribe had already been destroyed by the Bull tribe. The Bull tribe had destroyed the Chunyu tribe and annexed their territory. The Chunyu tribe was only left with the daughter of the current chief, Chunyu Xianxian. Almost instinctively, a trace of depression flashed in the green-clothed girl's eyes. She didn't want to fight the Bull tribe for the sake of Zia before she got any benefits. Could it be the headhunter tribe again? Zia didn't think of the Bull tribe. She thought that the third prince of the headhunter tribe, Lai Yin, had caught up again. Her face turned cold. "No matter who they are, don't let them disturb me." Chin Feng glanced at him and immediately chased the two of them out. The two of them walked towards the pursuing Gong Niu. Although she didn't want to, in order to maintain Zia's impression of her, the green-clothed girl followed with a straight face. Chin Feng looked at the two leaving figures, especially at the green-clothed girl. After a while, he looked at the linen-clothed girl on the ground. He raised a hand and extended a finger. White light appeared on the tip of his finger, and an invisible force was emitted. A white brilliance flew out and enveloped the linen-clothed girl who was on her last breath. Chi, visible to the naked eye, the coldness in the girl's body was expelled, and her injuries were healed under the white brilliance. The girl's pale face turned ruddy. Qin Feng didn't immediately wake up the linen-clothed girl. He looked out of the forest. The Bull Clan had sent quite a number of people. It was a small search team with about a dozen people. Behind Zia, the green-clothed girl stood outside the forest. Just because of a few words, a fight broke out. This search team was obviously no match for the two high-level warriors behind Zia and the girl in green. They were beaten to a pulp. The group of more than a dozen people were beaten black and blue and fled. Qin Feng's eyes flickered as he watched this scene from afar. From Qin Feng's perspective, it was naturally better to silence them. Once this search team ran away, it was very likely that they would attract more enemies. However, after Zia, the two girls in green had their own thoughts. Zia was too young and hadn't seen much of the world. He didn't want to kill without a word. The green-clothed girl had ulterior motives. She couldn't wait to lure all the experts of the Bull Clan here and take the opportunity to get rid of the linen-clothed girl. At the same time, she could take a certain token from the linen-clothed girl for herself. After driving away the search team from the Bull Clan, Zia and the girl in green returned. Uncle Qin. Zia saw Qin Feng standing by the fire and couldn't help but step forward. Then his eyes fell on the linen-clothed girl on the ground. He looked at Qin Feng questioningly. Camp by the fire. Qin Feng said indifferently. She has been saved. She should wake up soon. Hearing this, the green-clothed girl's beautiful eyes trembled slightly. She looked at the linen-clothed girl on the ground. After awakening the wood spirit, the green-clothed girl's perception of life was exceptionally clear. She could clearly sense that the linen-clothed girl, who was like a candle in the wind and whose fire of life could be extinguished at any time, had completely recovered from her injuries. For a moment, she looked at Qin Feng in inexplicable shock. This mysterious expert's methods were really terrifying. A person who had suffered such terrible injuries had actually recovered in such a short period of time. At this moment, Zia saw that Qin Feng was dismantling the temporary camp. After seeing Zia, he looked at him in confusion. Qin Feng looked indifferent. Let's go. Carry her. Don't wait for the Bull Clan's troops to catch up and take revenge. After saying that, Qin Feng glanced at the green-clothed girl. The green-clothed girl noticed this glance. Her expression was calm, but she felt a little strange. She felt that everything she did couldn't be hidden from this mysterious expert. After a moment of silence, the green-clothed girl said with a serious expression, Brother Zia, Uncle Qin is right. We let the Bull Clan's people go because of our carelessness. They definitely won't let us go. This area is the Bull Clan's territory. We have to leave the Bull Clan's territory as soon as possible. In front of us is the Liu Clan's territory. The Liu Clan is a large clan. I don't think the Bull Clan would dare to run into the Liu Clan's territory to kill us. Hearing this, Zia nodded. To get to Nanzhong Prefecture, they had to pass through the territories of many clans. These clans were big and small, but the Liu Clan was definitely one of the few large clans. It was enough to rank in the top 5. However, Zia still felt a little regretful. There were still 300 to 400 li to the Liu Clan. These 300 to 400 li were vast plains, but now it had become a snowfield. It was probably impossible to avoid the Bull Clan in such a place. A moment of mercy had left him with such a big problem. Zia's expression was a little gloomy. He didn't regret not killing the Bull Clan's experts. He just felt that he should have knocked out the search party. At least that would have bought them some time. Let's go. At this time, Qin Feng had already dismantled the entire camp. Under the green-clothed girl's gloomy expression, Zia went up and carried the linen-clothed girl on his back. In the snow, the few of them quickly rushed towards the Liu Clan's territory. At this time, in a huge stronghold, a young expert with pitch-black bull horns on his head looked coldly in the direction of the snowfield. In front of him, a dozen Bull Clan experts with swollen faces knelt on the ground with teary faces. Under the terrifying aura of this young expert, they trembled. On the side, there were a few cloaked existences with domineering auras. Their expressions were solemn. On a huge throne with sky-piercing bull horns, the young king said calmly, "No matter what, we can't let Chunyu Xianxian go. The token of the Chunyu clan might be on her. Don't hurt her. She is this king's destined queen. Bring her back alive." Chapter 1827. Although the Bull clan was one of the clans under the Jiang clan, they had always been neither strong nor weak. They weren't particularly outstanding either. However, since a few decades ago, as the previous generation of Bull clan experts obtained great opportunities, the entire Bull clan began to exert their strength and gradually merged with the surrounding clans. Chunyu clan's rejection of the Bull clan's marriage proposal was suicidal. Moreover, the Bull clan was determined to obtain Chunyu clan's legendary token. The Bull clan experts present all understood that this young clan leader, who was trusted by the Bull clan, only cared about Chunyu Xianxian's token. He didn't really care about this princess consort. If Chunyu Xianxian really ends up in the hands of others, you must act according to circumstances. Speaking of acting according to circumstances, the young man on the throne revealed a gloomy expression. Yes, clan leader. In front of the village, several experts stood up. The aura of immemorial rank experts filled the hall. Then, several experts walked out of the hall and began to mobilize the troops. In the hall, the young man pondered for a moment, then walked out of the hall and arrived at the shrine behind the Bull clan's mountain. In the shrine of the Bull clan, there were 3 or 4 enormous stone statues enshrined side by side in the center. In ordinary clans, there was the saying of enshrining ancestors, but the statues of the deceased ancestors weren't enshrined in the center, but in the side hall of the shrine. Only the first expert of the clan who obtained the clan's title would be enshrined in the center and revered by the countless descendants of the clan. At this moment, in the shrine of the Bull clan, there were 3 other experts enshrined in the center besides the first-generation Bull clan. The statues of these 3 experts exuded a peculiar aura. It was obvious that they were different from the Jiang clan. They seemed to have a foreign style. They either had scales, horns, or feathers. There were all kinds of strange powers in the clan, but in the Jiang clan, awakened clan powers rarely caused the experts to mutate, such as growing scales, feathers, horns, tails, claws, and so on. Not only the Jiang clan, but even among the Ji clan and other clans, there were very few people who possessed the awakening power of the mutated clan. However, the neighboring clans of the Jiang clan were rich in such mutated clan experts. He took 3 incense sticks from his side and inserted them into the small cauldron on the table. In an instant, an invisible aura appeared above one of the statues. The statues seemed to have a divine charm, and the young man clearly felt a gaze fall on him. A surge of pressure surged over, and the young man felt as if the air in the void seemed to have frozen. However, the young man's expression remained the same. "My lord, didn't I tell you not to summon us for no reason?" A slightly hoarse and cold voice came from the statue with a hint of anger. The owner of the divine statue was somewhat annoyed. His identity was special, and if the powerful warriors of the Jiang clan were to discover his whereabouts, the situation would not be good. Even in the face of the statue's wrath, the young man's expression remained cold. "Sir, the matter of the Chunyu tribe has become complicated. I'm afraid I need you to mobilize the spies in the Lu tribe to help me." Complicating matters? The atmosphere in the ancestral hall became tense, and the owner of the statue changed his expression. Many spies were needed to infiltrate the Jiang clan, and the token of the Chunyu tribe was a key thing. If the war god of the Qi clan wanted to swallow the Jiang clan and replace it, he needed many spies to control the situation. At the same time, this was also a key step to nibble away at the Jiang clan. The owner of the statue thought highly of the aptitude of the young man in front of him. If he could get the token of the Chunyu tribe it was completely possible for him to enter the Heaven Divine Palace in a few years. He could even enter the Zhongshui Divine Palace. If he could enter the Zhongshui Divine Palace, the importance of this spy was self-evident. There were also many clans in the Qi clan. The owner of the statue needed some merits as a way to get out, so that it would be convenient for him to divide the spoils in the future. Well, I already know about this matter. You just need to continue to hunt him down. If he enters the territory of the Lu tribe, I have my own methods. As the welcome ended, the owner of the statue paused for a moment. However, there is a difference between me catching Chunyu Xianxian and you catching her yourself. You have to take care of yourself. After that, a light flashed, and the ancestral hall became silent. The young man stood where he was and slowly raised his head, with some coldness between his eyebrows. "There is a difference," he murmured. "It seems that I have to do it myself." After pondering for a while, he simply went out of the ancestral hall and personally led his ancestors to go straight along the snowfield in the direction of the Lu tribe. In the Nanzhong mansion, in a magnificent mansion, above a secret chamber, a middle-aged man in a golden robe opened his eyes, with a trace of gloominess flashing in his eyes. "What a waste. I have to do it myself, even for such a small matter." That Neo Mo dares to call himself the most powerful patriarch of the Gong Neo tribe. With his hands behind his back, he paced back and forth in the secret chamber. His face flashed with anger. Recently, the entire Fire Emperor Palace had been tracking something. Some of the spies of the Qi clan had been exposed and attracted the attention of the Fire Emperor Palace. At this time, if he acted rashly, he was afraid that there would be a lot of risks. If the Fire Emperor Palace found some clues, it would be difficult to escape. The middle-aged man looked a little hesitant. Should he take the risk? But this hesitation only turned around in his mind, and the middle-aged man made up his mind. With a flash in his hand, a white color appeared. It was a conch, homophonic conch. This was a very popular object among the experts. This kind of conch had a magical effect. It could use sound as a medium to transmit words and images. There were quite a few of these kinds of communication artifacts. Now, many experts of the big clans were racking their brains to study the principle of this strange object. It was said that many objects that could monitor this kind of strange object have been born one after another. But the middle-aged man also had some research on this kind of conch. He could use some special methods, such as secret codes, to avoid this kind of conventional monitoring. On the snowfield, a group of people was speeding up in the direction of the Lu tribe. Chunyu Xianxian had already woken up halfway. However, she didn't know whether it was Qin Feng's intention or not, but she didn't have any strength in her body and could only be carried by Ziya. On the snowfield, the cold wind was blowing, not knowing whether it was because of the cold or because of shyness. Chunyu Xianxian lay on Ziya's shoulder. Her white and delicate facial features were a little blushed. The girl in green beside her had a frosty face. In front of them, one was higher than the other. Qin Feng felt the subtle difference between the three young men and women, and there was a strange look in his eyes. Chapter 1828. The group traveled at an extremely fast speed. They were only 100 miles away from the Lu clan's Sun Jijia City. Sun Jijia City was a large gathering area surrounded by natural barriers. The Lu clan was most famous for their spells. It was said that their ancestors had obtained an extremely mysterious and natural spell. This spell was extremely powerful. There was even a period of time when the Lu clan became the master of the Zhongshui Heavenly Palace. However, the glory of the clan could not last forever. Over the long years, the Lu clan gradually declined as the most powerful experts of the Lu clan fell. Even the extremely passed-down secret techniques of the Lu clan became incomplete. The Gong clan was rising rapidly, especially with their secret techniques of body refinement. They were unparalleled. However, they did not dare to provoke the old and powerful Lu clan. Speed up. After passing through this long and narrow valley, we should be able to reach the territory of Sun Jijia City. Qin Feng shouted from the front. Passing through the empty, snowy night, there was an extremely deep valley between the Gong clan and the Liu clan. The cliffs on both sides of the valley were straight and bare. There was no place to lean on. In Qin Feng's ears, he could already hear the whistling of the wind. Their pursuers were very close. Judging from the sound, there were probably hundreds of them. After Zia, the girl in green was not weak either. Her expression became extremely serious. The valley in front of them was very long. There was still 100 miles to go. There was no way they could avoid it. However, after Zia, the girl in green followed Qin Feng's secret order and passed through quickly. Qin Feng's figure lagged behind slightly. At the entrance of the valley, he glanced behind him. Within the vast expanse of white snow, he could see a group of several hundred people rapidly flying towards the entrance of the valley. Their speed was extremely fast. Seeing this, Qin Feng narrowed his eyes. Seeing that no one was paying attention, he waved his sleeves and turned around to catch up with Zia, the girl in green, and the other two. At the same time, in front of the valley, he waved his sleeves slightly, and a gentle breeze came from the other side of the valley. Rumble. In the blink of an eye, a terrifying tornado was formed, roaring through the entrance of the valley, heading straight for the Bull clan and the other experts who were still in hot pursuit. A few moments later, the hundreds of pursuers from the Gong clan were swept up into the sky, whistling as they sped off in an unknown direction. Hearing the commotion behind them, Zia, the green-clothed girl, and the linen-clothed girl turned around and stared at the terrifying tornado with their mouths agape. How could there be a tornado in this snowfield? At the same time, tens of miles away from the Bull clan, the current leader of the Bull clan, Niao Mo, pulled on the reins of his horse and stared at the tornado. Under the terrifying snow tornado, the dozens of Gong Niao clan experts were swept away in the blink of an eye. Not only that, but what caused Niao-mo's expression to change greatly was that as the snow tornado whistled, it swept towards him. Almost instinctively, Niao-mo pulled up the startled Snow Wolf King under him and ran back madly. The snow tornado was so fast that Niao-mo couldn't escape at all. In an instant, with a terrifying whistling sound, the two of them, along with the wolf and several of their subordinates, were involuntarily swept into the terrifying tornado. They were blown up into the sky by the tornado. In the blink of an eye, they were gone. It was certain that the Bull clan would never be able to catch up. Being swept up by the tornado, no matter how strong they were, they would definitely be half dead if they fell from the sky. Zia, the green-clothed girl, and the linen-clothed girl watched this scene from 100 miles away in a daze. It was like a dream. With a flash of light, like a breeze, Qin Feng appeared beside the three of them. "Uncle Qin, did you do this?" Zia looked at Qin Feng, an inexplicable heat bursting from her eyes. "It wasn't me." Qin Feng smiled and shook his head slightly. "Our luck is here. Even the tornado is helping us. Let's go." With a smile, Qin Feng took the lead and walked towards the other end of the canyon. "Good luck." Zia shook her head. How could there be such a coincidence? Just as they entered the canyon, a tornado came from the other side of the canyon and coincidentally swept the Bull clan into the sky. It's at least a king stage expert. The green-clothed girl and the linen-clothed girl's hearts shook violently. Only king stage experts of the Archean realm and above could affect the weather to this extent. What kind of existence was a king stage expert? Usually, only a few large tribes like the Liu clan had a king stage expert overseeing them. This was almost like a sea stabilizing needle on the earth. Usually, the rise of a king stage expert was bound to be followed by the rise of a large clan. In the Nanzhong prefecture, king stage experts were also important and had extremely high status. In Jieshur City, beside the Liu clan city, on a cliff that was hundreds of feet high, many stone residences were opened out of thin air. An expert whose aura was like a gale suddenly opened his eyes. His body flashed like an invisible whirlwind, and in an instant he appeared on the peak of the cliff that was only big enough for one person to stand on. His gray robe fluttered, and his grayish-white hair was draped behind his gray robe. He had a strange expression on his face. The mountain rocks here were extremely strange, as if they had been blown by the gale of the canyon. They were as thin as leaves, and sharp peaks were stacked on top of each other. They were rooted in the ground, and there were hundreds of them, forming a strange landscape. Many experts of the Lu clan who cultivated the secret techniques of the wind element liked to live on the peak of such stacked peaks, and dug out their cave residences on the peak. Cultivating in such a place was different from comprehending the power of the wind, and comprehending the unique power of the wind spirit. This expert looked into the distance and felt the strange fluctuations of the power of the wind. The huge tornado at the end of the canyon seemed to have appeared in his eyes. A naturally formed tornado. This expert furrowed his brows and looked into the distance. After advancing into the king stage of the wind element, he could see the changes of the world around him. According to his perception, it should be impossible for a tornado of such scale to form around him. This did not conform to the natural rules of the fluctuation of the power of the wind. Perhaps my understanding of the profound mystery of the wind is not clear enough. King stage experts were usually able to come into contact with the profound mystery of the changes of the world. Each element usually had 6 to 9 types of profound mysteries. Usually, if one could comprehend all 6 or 9 types of profound mysteries of a certain element, and obtain a divine personality bestowed by the world, one could advance into the origami level. Inside the cave, another black gust of wind flew out. A middle-aged man in a black robe with a slightly sinister and cold expression appeared beside the expert. "Second brother, what's wrong?" He was in a black robe, and his long hair was fluttering in the wind. His eyes were looking at the canyon in the distance, and a strange look flashed across. He then looked at the expert beside him. "That's all for today. Everyone rest early." Chapter 1829. Third brother. LV Linfeng glanced at the black-robed man. Ever since the Lu family's secret method became incomplete, there were 12 secret methods in its heyday. Now, there were only 3 left. Among the 3 secret techniques, the wind element was the most comprehensive, so it gave birth to the most experts. The 3 brothers who held power in the LV clan were almost all kings of the wind element. Although the 3 brothers were all kings, there was a difference in their strength. The most powerful one was the second brother, LV Linfeng, followed by the eldest brother, LV Lin, who was the clan leader of the Feng clan. Glancing at his third brother, LV Linfeng shook his head slightly. "Nothing. Maybe it's just my imagination. Let's go back. Eldest brother's 50th birthday is coming soon. Third brother, you should prepare a gift." As he spoke, he glanced at LV Wu. A gray whirlwind flashed, and he disappeared in the blink of an eye. On the spot, LV Wu looked at LV Linfeng, who left. His expression was gloomy, and there was a strange glint in his eyes. Could it be that he has sensed something? LV Wu was a little uneasy. Not long ago, he received a message from Nanzhong Prefecture, so he sent people to the canyon to intercept the experts of the Chunyu clan. But soon, LV Wu calmed down. The relationship between the Chunyu clan and the LV clan was ordinary. Even if his eldest brother knew that he had sent people to capture the little princess of the Chunyu clan, what could he do? Could he blame him, a king-level expert, for such a trivial matter? The status of a king-level expert in a clan was different from those ordinary high-level warriors. As long as he did not usurp the position of the clan leader, LV Lin would not do anything to him. Moreover, I am thinking for the LV clan. If that clan defeats the Jiang clan one day, perhaps the LV clan will be able to take charge of a prefecture and become the leader of a prefecture. LV Wu muttered, and the cold light in his eyes became more intense. He looked into the distance. The white snow covered the world. As a king-level expert, if he wanted to advance quickly and comprehend all the mysteries of a certain element, the fastest way was to get more experts to worship him. And to break through to the origami realm, he would need the clan divinity to complete the breakthrough. Clan godhood could only be bestowed by the heavens, and only when the clan was strong enough would they be able to offer sacrifices to the heavens. Moreover, Luwu heard from you that Chunyu Xianxian seems to have an extremely important item on her. If he could get his hands on this item, the reward would not just be some rare items from the emissary. No matter what, I must get the Chunyu family. His eyes flickered, and he moved. His black robe instantly turned into a boundless black wind. It swept him up and disappeared from the top of the mountain, heading towards a canyon. At this moment, Qin Feng and his group had already encountered the team sent by Lu Wu to capture them. Furthermore, he had been successfully captured and brought to the Lu clan, where he was locked up in the Wind Dungeons. Madame Lu's Wind Prison was at the bottom of the mountain. After years of erosion by the wind, the bottom of the mountain was eroded by the wind. It was hollowed out by the experts of the Lu family, forming many spacious prison cells. The four of them were treated similarly. Their limbs were tightly bound by metal chains with secret words engraved on them. They were all chained to the rock wall at the bottom of the mountain. Qin Feng had not been chained up like this many times. Since his rebirth, it had only happened once. That was when he was caught by Madame of Bones on the White Bone Plain and hung at the bottom of the cave. However, Madame of Bones, who had tried to teach him a lesson, did not manage to do so. Instead, she was completely naked and taken advantage of by him. "Uncle Qin, what should we do?" These metal chains have secret words engraved on them. They have the power to suppress the power of the ancestors. I can't use the power in my body at all. In another prison cell, Ziya's four limbs were suspended in the air. He had a bitter smile on his face. They did not resist because of Qin Feng. If not for their trust in Qin Feng, they would not have suffered so much even if they died in battle. "Brother Ziya, don't complain. The Lu clan has sent a large group of 4 to 5 Archean experts. We can't escape. Don't they want the token of the Chunyu family? When the time comes, I'll just hand it over to them. I believe they won't harm our lives." In another prison cell, Chunyu Xianxian was also suspended in the air. Her voice sounded weak. She had just recovered from her injuries and was not completely healed. The girl bit her lip with a trace of self-blame. On the other side, Luo Shang was also suspended in the air. When she heard this, her beautiful eyes were filled with ridicule. "Stupid woman, what do you know? Have you ever heard of not killing after seizing treasures? If that's the case, we might as well fight to the death with them and drag them down with us before we die." Ziya's face was filled with frustration. The girl in green did not speak. Her beautiful eyes looked at Qin Feng, who had been expressionless all this time. She seemed to be thinking about something. She always felt that Qin Feng was extremely mysterious. With the strength that Qin Feng had shown, he was not afraid of the Lu clan at all. Why would he surrender? Even if he could not win, he could still run away. Qin Feng said that the appearance of the tornado was a coincidence, but she did not believe it at all. Of course, it was not a coincidence. Qin Feng was willing to surrender not only because he did not want to expose his strength, but also because he was taking advantage of the situation. At this moment, in the center of the stone room, Qin Feng's body was hanging upside down. However, that was only a body transformed from an ordinary stone. His true body had already transformed and silently exited the stone room. After hearing rumors about the Lu clan's secret technique, Qin Feng was immediately tempted. He had unexpectedly obtained an opportunity and comprehended the extremely powerful Lu clan's secret technique from a wondrous item. The origin of this wondrous item was something that needed to be considered. Such a wondrous item was absolutely precious, even to eternal emperors. Qin Feng even suspected that it might be some sort of eternal secret technique. Only by comprehending such an eternal secret technique or an extremely powerful wondrous item could one comprehend a secret technique that could reach the Rage God realm. Qin Feng's body transformed into a gust of wind as he swam through the Lu clan's territory. After several laps, Qin Feng was disappointed. Nothing. There was no aura or trace of any wondrous item. Qin Feng had also found a fragment of the Lu clan's secret technique in the Lu clan's ancestral hall. It seemed to be quite exquisite and could directly reach the King realm. There's also an extremely powerful wind-type secret technique that could summon all sorts of wondrous winds. However, it was not as profound as he had imagined. After finding nothing, he was unhappy. After circling the Lu clan a few times, Qin Feng transformed into a gust of wind and returned to the stone prison at the bottom of the mountain. He wanted to think of a way to escape. However, when he returned, he saw a group of people walking towards the 4 stone prisons with ill intentions. Bring them all out. I want to interrogate them together. A gloomy and cold voice sounded outside the stone prison at the bottom of the cliff. Dry eyes. The doctor said that the writer's occupational disease. The author is advised to reduce the frequency of computer use and rest for a period of time. Therefore, I will update less during this period. Chapter 1830. Outside the stone prison at the bottom of the cliff was an open-air area where many prisoners were locked up. Outside the stone prison was a slaughterhouse where many experts from the Lu family slaughtered ferocious beasts. There were also patrols. When Lu Wu arrived, the experts from the Lu family who were guarding the prisoners in the stone prison naturally made way for him. Lu Wu waved his hand and coldly swept his gaze across the 4 stone rooms outside the stone prison. Bring them to the wind punishment room. With a cold gaze, he took the lead and walked into the depths of the underground stone prison. Beside him, a few experts looked at each other and sympathetically looked at Qin Feng, Ziya, the girl in green, and the girl in linen. The wind punishment room was located in the depths of the cliff and had been hollowed out by the experts from the Lu family to form a special stone room for the interrogation of the Lu family's prisoners. It was fully equipped, and even some experts from the Lu family would not be able to withstand the torture if they entered it. They would not be able to live or die. Qin Feng, Ziya, the girl in green, and the girl in linen were released from the stone wall, but their hands and feet were still shackled and shackled. The 4 of them were escorted into the stone prison by the experts from the Lu family. After opening a stone room, the experts from the Lu family pushed the 4 of them into the stone room with malice in their eyes. Once they entered the stone room, the girl in green, Luo Chong, turned pale. The stone room looked rather spacious and was the size of a square. However, it was filled with all kinds of torture tools that were famous among the Lu family's clans. Even with the mental state of the green-clothed girl, she could not help but suck in a breath of cold air with just one glance. Many of the torture tools had only been heard of in legends. It was the first time that Ziya and the girl in linen had seen such a scene. Their faces turned extremely pale, and they forced themselves to remain calm. Seeing their expressions, Lu Wu, who had been waiting in the stone room for a long time, sneered. If you were smart, you'd better hand over that thing immediately and spare you from suffering. The girl in linen glanced at Ziya, and the girl in green hesitated. A trace of bitterness flashed across her beautiful eyes, and she was about to speak. Qin Feng spoke first. All right, stop grumbling. Let's take a look at the torture methods of the Lu tribe and broaden our horizons. When the time comes, don't be so weak that you can't use your strength. Behind Ziya, the green-clothed girl, and even the linen-clothed girl who had opened her mouth and lust stared at Qin Feng, tongue-tied. The green-clothed girl could see that Qin Feng had come here to look for trouble. Ziya's mouth was indeed bitter. Lu had clearly seen that the linen-clothed girl, Chunyu Xianxian, was about to speak. However, when he saw Qin Feng suddenly open his mouth and spoil the plan, he was instantly enraged. All right, you want to experience the torture of the Lu family, right? I'll fulfill your wish. Lu Wu said coldly. Then, he signaled with his eyes. Among the 4 experts from the Lu clan behind him, one of them understood. With a wave of his hand, someone stepped forward and dragged Qin Feng to a stone pillar. One could see with the naked eye that the stone pillar was covered with barbed steel needles. Bang! Qin Feng's body was tied to the pillar. The iron chains that were as heavy as anchors were tied around him again and again. Qin Feng's body collided with the steel needles, but his expression did not change. Seeing Qin Feng's expression, the 4 Lu clan experts behind Lu Wu could not help but look at each other. The steel needles on the stone pillar were not ordinary steel needles. They were specially made to deal with the experts of the Lu clan. The barbs contained blood grooves and several kinds of toxins that could magnify the pain by dozens or even hundreds of times. When ordinary experts were hooked into the flesh by the steel needles, even a man of steel would not be able to help but groan. After Zia, the green-clothed girl and the linen-clothed girl were not tied up for the time being. Lu Wu probably wanted to make an example of them and intimidate them. For the time being, he did not do anything to them. However, looking at Qin Feng's situation, the green-clothed girl and the linen-clothed girl's expressions did not change. However, their eyes were inevitably filled with shock. This was the effect that Lu Wu wanted to achieve. Seeing this, Lu Wu sneered in his heart. However, when his gaze fell on Qin Feng, it only took a glance for him to fly into a rage. At this time, Qin Feng raised his head and looked at Lu Wu. He raised his eyebrows slightly with a frivolous expression. Beat him hard. Lu Wu's face was ashen as he shouted gloomily. Yes, one of the Lu clan experts was already eager to try. When he heard Lu Wu's order, he immediately took down a black iron whip that was covered with countless small barbs from the wall. The terrifying black iron whip was enough to make one's heart go numb at a glance. It was a very famous torture in the Lu clan, the thorn punishment. That whip was called the thorny dragon whip. Each lash had the strength of an ancient dragon, a ferocious beast. It was enough to break the spine of a mid-ranked warrior. Being whipped at such a close distance would cause one's body to sink into the iron hooks on the stone pillar behind. It was an extraordinary pain. It was like a sandwich biscuit. It was so painful that one would rather die. With a ferocious expression, he held the iron whip and swung it at Qin Feng. Just like Lu Wu, Zia, the girl in green, and the girl in linen, screams came from the pillar. Hearing the screams, the Lu clan experts became even more excited. A whip to the left, a whip to the right, lashing out nonstop. Soon, Qin Feng, who was beaten on the pillar, began to cry for his father and mother. Continuous screams came from the pillar. Hearing the screams, a smile appeared on Lu Wu's face. However, the smile soon froze on his face. He did not know if it was an illusion, but the screaming Qin Feng on the pillar suddenly changed his appearance. He turned into a fat and arrogant teenager who looked only 15 or 16 years old. "Father, stop beating him, stop beating him. It's me." The teenager who was tied to the pillar was crying for his father and mother. Kuang-er, looking at the fat and arrogant teenager on the pillar, Lu Wu's expression changed drastically. The four Lu clan experts behind him also reacted. "That's the young master. It's the third master's son. Stop it. Stop beating him. That's the third master's son, Lu Kuang." The four of them were shocked and angry. They could not help but pull back the Lu clan expert who was carrying out the punishment. Lu Kuang was Lu Wu's only son. Although he had no talent and could not awaken the power of the family name, Lu Kuang doted on him and almost gave him everything he wanted. At this time, Lu Kuang should be playing with women in the tribe. Why was he suddenly on the torture rack? The four Lu clan experts were puzzled and tried to stop him. However, it was as if the executioner was possessed. He completely ignored the tugging of the four Lu clan experts. His face was filled with excitement, and his eyes were shining. He whipped the youth called Lu Kuang until he cried out loudly. After a few lashes, he was already badly mutilated. He was only half alive. Bastard! Seeing this, Lu Wu felt a sharp pain in his heart. He howled and sent the executioner flying with a palm strike. He then walked to Lu Kuang. However, the scene in front of him almost made Lu Wu faint from the heartache. His beloved son was badly mutilated and barely alive. While he was unconscious, the flesh on his back was hooked by the barbs. He was in so much pain that he was twitching uncontrollably. Chapter 1831. Behind Zia, the girl in green and the girl in linen were already staring with their eyes wide open. This kind of stealthy method of teleportation was simply shocking. Qin Feng's figure appeared beside the three of them. Zia's eyes lit up as she looked at Qin Feng. "Uncle, what kind of divine power is this?" His eyes were full of passion. Such a wonderful technique made his heart itch unbearably. The green-clothed girl, Luo Chang, and the linen-clothed girl, Chunyu Xianxian, were also unable to hide their curiosity as they looked at Qin Feng. Qin Feng chuckled and said, "This technique is called the art of creation. I created it by combining thousands of secret techniques. It is ever-changing. Earth, water, wind, fire, the 5 elements of heaven and earth, all things in the world, and all kinds of divine powers." So powerful? The 3 of them widened their eyes. Their eyes were full of shock and desire. Powerful, but a small trick? Qin Feng shook his head slightly. This was just a secret technique that he created to fight against enemies. Compared to his own great Tao, these people were just a side branch. However, after Ziya, Luo Chang, Chunyu Xianxian, and Qin Feng were too pretentious. If such a secret technique was just a small trick, then what about the secret techniques of the clans that they cultivated? On the other side, Lu Kuang had been beaten to a pulp. Looking at Aiko's half-dead appearance, Lu Wu completely exploded. A group of people rushed toward the 4 of them in a frenzy. After Ziya, Luo Chang, and Chunyu Xianxian subconsciously moved behind Qin Feng. At the door, he watched the scene calmly. "Freeze!" Qin Feng spat out a word. Lu Wu, who was rushing over, and the group of experts of the Lu clan were immediately nailed to the ground like wooden stakes. Ziya looked at the scene with a blank expression. "This is also the art of creation?" "That's right. If you want to learn it, I will teach it to you slowly in the future." Qin Feng glanced at Ziya, then at Luo Chang and Chunyu Xianxian. "What are you waiting for? Kill them and take the opportunity to escape." "Oh, okay." Hearing this, Ziya was the first to react. He spread his arms, and the emerald by Feng divine fire emerged from his palms. "Go!" Following his shout, a ball of divine fire split into a dozen and charged towards Lu Wu and the others. They hit Lu Wu and the others with unerring accuracy, burning them to death while they were immobilized. At the side, Luo Chang and Chunyu Xianxian's expressions changed when they saw this. Releasing a dozen fireballs in one breath wasn't particularly brilliant, but being able to control each fireball with such precision was very amazing. This meant that this expert had a very powerful ability to control the field. Facing such an expert, whether it was a group fight or a one-on-one fight, it would be a headache. These people were usually the most powerful group of existences. It seems like the future desolate god of the 9 wilderness has already embarked on the path of creating the 9 wilderness imperial spirit technique. Luo Chang's eyes moved as she sighed in her heart. The 9 godly arts were too mysterious, especially before the king stage. They had an advantage that allowed them to kill enemies beyond their realm. The 9 wilderness imperial spirit technique, created according to the 9 godly arts, would continue to amplify this advantage. Even among the desolate gods, the future desolate god of the 9 wilderness would be one of the best. The girl in green felt that the steps of trapping him under her skirt should be sped up. With this thought in mind, she subconsciously glanced at Chunyu Xianxian beside her. This was a very strong opponent. Under the light of the fire, Chunyu Xianxian didn't notice Luo Chang's hostility. Her gaze only fell on Ziya's back. She remembered being carried by this young man all the way. The feeling of safety, warmth, and having someone to rely on filled the girl's heart. Outside the stone prison at the bottom of the cliff, bonfires were already lit in the evening. Piles of bonfires could drive away the fearsome beasts that were afraid of fire, and could also bring warmth to the clan members. The birthday of the Lu clan's leader was approaching, and the clan was exceptionally lively. They had already started preparing for the ceremony a few days ago. It was grand and solemn. Night had just fallen when members of the clan wearing masks started to perform a strange beach dance beside the bonfires. Patriarchs stood beside the stage built by the bonfires and prayed to the heavens. The clan ceremony had been around since ancient times. They used this special ceremony to pray for a bountiful harvest in the next year, good weather, and the well-being of their people and animals. It was also a celebration of the beginning of prosperity. They sang and danced. In the stone prison, Lu Wu and the others were burned to death. Qin Feng, Ziya, Luo Chang, and Chunyu Xianxian changed their appearances and wore the Lu clan's clothes and masks. They walked out of the corner while the sky was dark and blended into the crowd. They took the opportunity to leave the Lu clan's Sun Jija city. They took a few tamed giant wolves, and the four of them galloped out of the Lu clan's territory. The Sun Jija city was the undisputed overlord of the area within a radius of 800 miles. Along the way, the Lu clan was the leader of many clans. A starving camel was still bigger than a horse. However, compared to their heyday, the lord of a manor had a territory that spanned a radius of 100,000 miles. 800 miles was just the last of their glory. The current lord of Nanjong Manor, Ziya, had always been suppressing the Lu clan. Once they left the Lu clan's territory, they would reach the Chui clan's territory, and then the Su clan's territory. After passing through the territories of these two clans, they would reach the Nanjong Manor by the Zhang River. Qin Feng and the other three were extremely lucky. The night they escaped, it was the birthday of the Lu clan's leader. The disappearance of Lu Wu and the others did not attract the attention of the powerful Lu clan. However, on the second day, the powerful Lu clan gradually realized that something was wrong. As the Lu clan's leader's brother, Lu Wu did not appear during the birthday celebration. This was obviously not right. After some investigation, they finally realized that something was wrong. Lu Wu was nowhere to be found. Even his only son, Lu Kuang, and some of his trusted followers were nowhere to be found. At the same time, Qin Feng, Chunyu Xianxian, and the other three also caught the attention of the Lu clan's higher-ups. However, by the time the Lu clan sent out their pursuers, Qin Feng and the others were not far from the Chui clan. The Chui clan's territory was different from the Lu clan's and the Su clan's territory. The Su clan got its name because they lived by the Su River. The Chui clan lived in Zhangqiu and was an extremely noble clan. It was rumored that the ancestor of the Chui clan was the direct descendant of the Yin emperor. The Chui clan was noble and had even become the master of the Zhang River Divine Palace. The branch of the Chui clan in Zhangqiu had migrated from the north of the Zhang River. It was said that the ancestor of this branch of the Chui clan had led his clansmen across the Zhang River to Zhangqiu. Today, the Chui clan was still a large clan and was not weaker than the Ziya clan. They were quite powerful in the north of the Zhang River and occupied several manors. Zhangqiu's branch of the Chui clan was rumored to be in contact with the main branch of the Chui clan in the north of the Zhang River. There were also clans that thought that this was a smokescreen released by the Chui clan to intimidate the surrounding powerful clans. However, no matter what, Zhangqiu's branch of the Chui clan was indeed very influential. However, the Chui clan was most famous for the power of their surname. Chapter 1832. The Chui family's power of awakening was the Earth Spirit. This kind of unique surname power was said to be able to tread on the earth and possess boundless strength. However, the most powerful power of awakening was the power that they awakened after they mutated. The awakening power of every expert was usually related to their parents' inheritance. If two men and women from different clans married, there is a certain possibility that the next generation's power would mutate. However, there was also a possibility that they could not awaken their power. Every year, the Chui family had a few people who had awakened their power. When Qin Feng, Ziya, Luo Chang, and Chunyu Xianxian arrived at Zhangqiu's Upper Ming City, they happened to meet some of the younger generation experts from the Chui family who were participating in the recruitment of the Lingyan Academy. The four of them did not leave immediately. Instead, they purchased some resources in Upper Ming City. Thanks to the Chui family's deterrence, the Lui family did not chase after them. Although they were unwilling, they did not dare to barge into the Chui family's territory. The relationship between clans was not harmonious. They each had their own territory. Everyone minded their own business. If one of the clans led an army to invade the territory, it would easily lead to a serious conflict. The Chui family of Zhangqiu was not easy to deal with. Upper Ming City was considered open. It was not only the gathering place of the Chui family of Zhangqiu, but also a very open market. Many clans had harvests in the forest. If the clans could not finish the harvest, they would sell it here. The Chui family ensured the safety of the goods and collected a certain percentage of taxes. This tax took up a large portion of the Chui family's finances. The Chui family placed great importance on this transaction. The Louis family's Sun Precept City also had a similar existence, but it was obviously more overbearing. Moreover, there was internal strife within the Louis family, so it was not safe to enter Sun Precept City. Obviously, Zhangqiu's Upper Ming City was more prosperous. Especially during the harsh winter, food was scarce. Only here could one buy things for the clans to survive the winter. After replenishing their supplies in Upper Ming City, the four of them set off again and headed towards the Su family's Su-Du. The Su family rose in Su-Du with the Su River as their backing. The Su River was a tributary of the Zhang River. Su-Du was an ancient city. It was the ancient land of an ancient and enormous clan. After that illustrious clan was destroyed, the Su clan stood out among the numerous small clans and became the new master of this land. In the ruins, the Su family built Su-Du. The mission of Qin Feng and the others was to hurry to Su-Du and take the boat down, which would lead them straight to Nanzhong Mansion on the bank of the Zhang River. This was the shortest path. If the path from Jeshur City to Upper Brilliant City was the path of savagery, then the path from Upper Brilliant City to Su-Du was the path of civilization. Many clans had formed villages and towns along the way, absorbing the surrounding clans and showing signs of prosperity. Although it was snowing heavily, one could still see the experts of the clans passing by on the snowy road in their carriages. They were all in a hurry, dragging loads of goods as they rode by. There were many such fleets. However, most of them were heavily guarded, equipped with several clan knights with swords and sabers as guards. Z was quite surprised. The girl in green and the girl in sackcloth were two beautiful women with extraordinary backgrounds. However, they were calm and unmoved. Obviously, they had seen a lot of this. However, along the way, the girl in green and the girl in sackcloth had put on some makeup. Both of them were beautiful women. If such women appeared in the wilderness, they would inevitably attract attention and cause trouble. Therefore, they simply covered up their faces. Qin Feng and the others sped towards Su-Du. Meanwhile, in Nanzhong Mansion, the spy who had been paying attention to Ziya also received news of Lu Wu's disappearance a few days later. In the clans, there was usually only one word for disappearance: death. What surprised the spies was more suspicion than surprise. Lu Wu was not a nobody. He was a king-level expert. Such an expert would also have an honorable status in the Nanzhong Prefecture. The spy even suspected that it was the Jiang clan who did it. Otherwise, a king-level expert would not have suddenly disappeared. This caused the spy to mutter in his heart for a long time. For the sake of caution, the spy tried his best to reduce his movements in a short period of time to avoid being detected by the Jiang clan. This sudden change in the spy's thoughts saved Qin Feng and the others a lot of trouble. The Headhunter clan was still tracking the four. However, because they had entered the hinterland of Nanzhong Mansion, they slowed down their pursuit. Although the Headhunter clan was not completely hostile to the Jiang clan, they were definitely not friendly. Once the Ziya clan experts of Nanzhong Mansion found traces of them, they would not be merciful. For the Headhunter clan to be able to obtain such benefits from the other clans and the Jiang clan, they naturally knew the principle of concealing their strength. Half a month later, the group arrived at Su-Du faster than Ziya, the girl in green, and the girl in sackcloth had imagined. Su-Du was a huge, ancient city built by the water. The city walls were tall and stood on the bank of the torrential Su River. In front of them was a vast plain. Beside it was a tall mountain range. The mountain range seemed to be connected to Su-Du. On the other side of Su-Du, there was a small port town near Su-Du. The port here was like a blood vessel that connected the area. It was a very important place. It was said that there were still some experts from the Zhongshui Divine Palace stationed in a place like Su-Du. The Su River also had the water god sent by the Zhongshui Divine Palace. In the Su mountain range on the side, there were also experts from the clans who served as mountain gods. They sat here and guarded the heart of the city at close range. Outside Su-Du, Qin Feng sensed the mountain god sitting in the Su mountain range at close range. It was an early-stage Emperor stage expert. However, he had been conferred the title of Mountain God of the Su clan by the Zhongshui Divine Palace. He had been conferred the title by Su, Du, and many other clans of various sizes. It was equivalent to having a rather high-level karmic position of heaven and earth. This kind of karmic position of heaven and earth formed a powerful divine domain. Sitting in it was equivalent to blocking the mighty power of the mountains and rivers. It was very powerful. An Emperor stage expert of the same level would definitely not be a match for an expert of the same level who had been conferred the title of God. In Qin Feng's view, this kind of mountain god was much more precious than the consecration of ordinary powerful clans and tribes. Qin Feng was somewhat tempted. He felt that he might have overlooked something. He could totally collect the essence of the mountains and rivers to obtain this kind of karmic position of heaven and earth. However, this thought only lingered in his mind for a moment before it was discarded. The rules of heaven and earth in the inner world were different from the spirit sea. It seemed that only the consecration of the clans could make the inner world respond to it and give birth to a comparable karmic position of heaven and earth, or even the divinity of the desolate god. If he collected too much essence of the mountains and rivers, without the recognition and consecration of the experts of the clans, he still could not resonate with the inner world and gather a powerful karmic position of heaven and earth. Qin Feng noticed that on this land, the experts of the clans did not seem to be keen on this kind of karmic position of heaven and earth that relied on the mountains. Chapter 1833. Qin Feng realized that in this desolate land dominated by the clans, those experts were more willing to occupy the water system and achieve great terror and power. The karma of heaven and earth also preferred the water attribute. On the other hand, mountain species like the mountain deity seemed to lack interest. Although many mountains were full of earth chi, many experts were disdainful or picky. Qin Feng was very intelligent and soon understood the source of this. Most of the clans lived by the water. The clans could not leave the water source and lived by the water. Naturally, if one could become the water lord of a water residence, they would receive more offerings. As for the mountain lord, he was more miserable. The desolate mountain range was everywhere. Without this mountain, he could move to other places. The mountain lord could not be ruthless because of the clan's lack of offerings. Those experts who were worshipped by the clans would not allow the mountain lord to act recklessly and damage their interests. In the distance, in the hazy fog, looking at the tall city gate of Su Du, Ziya, the green-clothed girl, and the linen-clothed girl were all rather happy. At this point, the nearly 2-month journey had finally come to an end. Although the cold wind could temper one's will, it was indeed torturous. Compared to Ziya's pure joy, the green-clothed girl's eyes flickered as she looked around with a trace of caution. Compared to ordinary ancient cities, Sudu was more important. There were gods and demons secretly monitoring it. As someone who had been reborn, before the green-clothed girl grew up, she was very worried about encountering gods and demons. Most of those experts were very powerful. If she was not careful, her secret would be completely exposed and she would become the prey of others. Looking at the tall city gate of Su Du, the green-clothed girl's eyes flickered. She remembered that a few years later, someone seemed to have picked up an extremely special treasure in the black market of Su Du as a result. His cultivation soared, and he became an expert. Maybe I could try my luck. Thinking like this, after the green-clothed girl entered Su Du, she left quietly with Ziya and Qin Feng. She only said that she would soon meet up at the dock. Ziya did not pay much attention to it. He hurriedly brought the linen-clothed girl around Su Du. This was the first time he had seen such a huge clan capital. Qin Feng, on the other hand, helped the 4 of them to buy tickets at the dock. The place to buy the tickets was in the south of Su Du City. The Su clan had built a rather large pier outside the city along the river. From afar, one could hear the sounds of people snoring at the docks, as well as a strong, fishy smell. There were even sturdy slaves, moving living things from large ships that had docked at the shore. The supervisor's reprimand could be heard from afar. Qin Feng saw a wooden signboard in front of a small cabin on the dock. The surroundings were extremely crowded and lively. There was a long line of people outside the ticket office. More than 10 burly and valiant men blocked the people who wanted to buy tickets outside. What bad luck! I actually encountered a dire beast. Yes, if we delay for a few days, I'm afraid the people in the tribe will starve for a few days. It's a little strange. At this time of the year, the fish flood season has already passed. There shouldn't be any strong, dire beasts migrating. Why would there suddenly be dire beasts blocking the river and causing trouble? Who knows? I heard that Lord Su Jin of Su Du City has already taken action. There's also the Su River god of the Water Manor. They should be able to clean up the dire beasts soon. Let's go. When the ships are ready, the Su clan should put up a notice. Listening to the discussions beside his ears, he mixed in with the crowd and swept his gaze across. Those who came to buy tickets were experts from the clans along the river who came to buy supplies. There were also adventurers who came to Su Du to sell their supplies. There were also youths who were not young. Most of these youths were heading to Nanjong Manor to participate in the Spiritual Flame Academy's trial. All of them had a slightly worried expression. Some were worried that the clans would not be able to get supplies in time and would starve. Some adventurers were distressed about the cost of living in Su Du after all. Every day in Su Du was not a small expense. The group of youths were more worried about missing the enrollment date of the Spiritual Flame Academy. At that time, they would have to wait for the next year. For the youths of the clans, every year they waited was a year's time wasted. A year's time was very likely to cause drastic changes to the living conditions of the clans. The earlier he became stronger, the safer he would be for the clan tribes. The youths were the future of the clans. Qin Feng looked thoughtful. He was not worried. Even if Zia missed the Nanjong Manor's trial, he could just bring them to the capital of the Heavenly Sacred Palace to participate in a higher-level academy's trial. As for the difficulty of the higher-level academy's trial, it was not a big problem for him. Qin Feng thought in his heart. He felt that the dire beasts blocking the river this time might be a good opportunity to get the Su clan's offerings. No matter how small a mosquito was, it was still meat. Although Qin Feng's goal had always been to start with Nanjong Manor. In order to hide his identity, he was now acting as an old antique who was about to break through to the origami realm. Therefore, he naturally had to find a way to obtain the clan's divinity to be able to display the power above the origami realm. Otherwise, he would not be able to display the power above the origami realm in public and obtain more offerings. Mixed in with the crowd, Qin Feng returned to the city of Su Du and prepared to find a place to stay. Qin Feng found a courtyard house. The courtyard house belonged to a member of the Su clan. There were many members of the Su clan who provided paid accommodation. With the direction of goods, one could exchange for a few temporary rooms. After finding a place to stay, Qin Feng waited for a while at the agreed meeting place. The green-clothed girl, Luo Chong, who had finished touring part of the city of Su Du, arrived one after another. When she arrived, the green-clothed girl smiled. Obviously, she had gained a lot. Seeing Qin Feng waiting for her, the green-clothed girl restrained the joy on her face and nodded respectfully. Since seeing Qin Feng stop Lu Wu with one sentence, the green-clothed girl became more respectful to Qin Feng. The green-clothed girl suspected that Qin Feng was an old antique of the Zia clan. He might be in existence from the ancient era who was about to break through to the divine realm. The green-clothed girl was very knowledgeable. Under her influence, many old antiques would come out of seclusion after reaching the peak of the Emperor realm and comprehending all the mysteries of the system. They would enter the clan to serve, obtain a high position, and receive offerings from the clan. Then, they would obtain the clan's divinity during the heaven worship ceremony and break through to the origami realm. Thinking of this, the green-clothed girl became more and more envious of Zia. Fortune favors fools. With such an old ancestor looking after him, who would dare to touch him easily? Not long after, Zia and the linen-clothed girl also arrived at the meeting place. Chapter 1834. Shudu was undoubtedly very lively. At first, Queen Zia was quite interested in going to the market every day and had some fresh experiences. But as the 3 days passed, the novelty was gradually replaced by anxiety. Nanjong Mansion's enrollment for the Spiritual Flame Academy was about to begin. If they missed it, they could only wait for next year. Queen Zia's anxiety was seen by everyone. Luo Chong and Chunyu Xianxian were helpless. They couldn't take a detour. If they didn't go through Shudu and went by land, their speed would be much faster. If they went with the flow of the river, their speed would be much faster. Uncle Chin, what should we do? Why don't we think of a way ourselves? In the courtyard, Queen Zia was pacing back and forth at the 10 tables, looking extremely uneasy. He carried an ancient sword on his back and looked extremely depressed and irritated. Zia, that's enough. Stop pacing in front of me. Sitting at the stone table, Luo Chong frowned and looked at Queen Zia. She glanced at Qin Feng from the corner of her eyes. Compared to the calm Qin Feng, even though Queen Zia had a bright future, Luo Chong still felt vaguely disappointed. In her original plan, she was prepared to use her beauty to win over this youth and obtain a good future for herself. But there was no harm without comparison. Queen Zia was too inexperienced. As an extremely mature girl, Luo Chong tried her best to convince herself, but she still couldn't fall in love with this youth, even if the other party was a shiny and thick thigh in the future. On the contrary, Luo Chang's gaze fell on Qin Feng. Mature, steady, magnanimous, and tyrannical strength. No matter how she looked at it, he was much more charming than Queen Zia. Sensing the sneaky gaze of the reincarnated girl, Qin Feng glanced at her and didn't know whether to laugh or cry. Lord Qin Feng's cultivation technique isn't enough to stop your appetite. Just based on the secret techniques that Lord Qin Feng taught us these few days, we're already miles ahead of the Spiritual Flame Academy. Speaking of the secret techniques that they learned these few days, the green-clothed girl's eyes lit up even more. Chunyu Xianxian, who had been resting with her eyes closed, also opened her eyes. A pair of star-like, beautiful eyes stared at Qin Feng. Although the lord in front of him had only scratched the surface of the creation mysterious art that he had created, the various divine abilities involved were still an eye-opener. The three of them had each learned a divine ability. They all felt that their control over the power of their surnames had risen to another level in a short period of time. If they could truly master the divine abilities they had learned, they would definitely enjoy them for the rest of their lives. Zia scratched his head. After being refuted by the green-clothed girl, his face turned red. That's different. Entering the Spirit Flame Academy is the key to entering the Nanjong Mansion and entering the upper echelons of the Jiang clan. Ziya's voice lacked confidence. In the end, when she met the gazes of the other two women, her voice became softer and softer. Indeed, that mysterious secret technique was of great help to the three of them, especially the mysterious flame technique that he had learned. It allowed him to gain innumerable benefits in controlling the spirit flame in his body. It was like the key that opened the door of power. Hearing Ziya's words, Qin Feng did not pay much attention to them. Zia was right. The Spirit Flame Academy was not only a place for many young people of the Jiang clan to learn martial arts. It also had an extremely important meaning. It was the official academy of the Jiang clan. Most of the upper echelons of the Jiang clan were born here. Many experts who held high positions in the Jiang clan naturally had a close relationship with the students of the various great academies. If they could graduate from such an academy, it would undoubtedly be beneficial to their future in the Jiang clan. At this moment, Qin Feng's expression changed. He looked outside the courtyard. Dong dong. Accompanied by a series of footsteps, there was a hurried knock on the door. I'm going to open the door. The sudden knock on the door relieved Zia from her awkward mood. She hurriedly went to open the door. Who's knocking on the door? It's me, esteemed guest. A slightly weak female voice came from outside the door. As the door opened, a plump woman in hemp clothes walked in. This plump woman was none other than the landlord of the courtyard. Although she was slightly plump, she looked extremely benevolent. Beside her, There were a few slightly thin and weak children around 7 or 8 years old. Looking at the guests in the courtyard, the children looked around curiously. The plump woman, Su Shi, came to the stone table. She glanced at Zia, the girl in green, and the girl in hemp clothes. With one look, she could tell that these people had extraordinary temperaments and were not ordinary people. Looking at Qin Feng, she bowed slightly and said, "Guest, the information you asked for has been settled. In the morning, the clan leader has ordered people to post a notice at the city gate, inviting talents from all over to kill the ferocious beast. If you can kill the ferocious beast of the river embracing residents for the Su clan, you will be rewarded generously." Beside the stone table, a smile appeared in Qin Feng's eyes when he heard that. He nodded slightly at the plump woman. His eyes flashed slightly. With a flip of his hand, a piece of high-quality animal skin that emitted a strong aura appeared in his hand. "This is your reward." Qin Feng handed it to the plump woman. The plump landlord also knew what was good for her. Looking at this piece of animal skin that emitted a strong and fierce aura, her eyes lit up. If such a good thing was placed on her sons, it would be of great benefit to them in awakening the power of the surname. "Thank you, noble." After the plump woman thanked him, she left with the children. "Uncle Qin, could it be that you want—" Hearing the landlord's words, Zia seemed to be deep in thought. Facing Zia, Luo Chang, and Chunyu Xianxian's gazes, Qin Feng smiled slightly. He did not comment on Ziya's guess. The meaning was self-evident. Seeing this, Luo Chang and Chunyu Xianxian looked at each other. Their eyes flickered with a strange light. In the afternoon, Qin Feng casually took off a list at the city gate. Then, the four of them came to the clan mansion in the center. Seeing the list in Ziya's hand, the guards in front of the clan mansion glanced at it and directly let the four of them in. "Another guy has come to take off the list." A bunch of brats who were still wet behind the ears dare to take off the list. In the hall outside the clan mansion, there were already many clan experts sitting there, waiting for an audience. These experts all had extraordinary auras, and there was no lack of truly powerful existences. When they saw Qin Feng's group of four coming in from outside, many of them swept their gazes over with hostility. However, some of them immediately looked at Luo Chang and Chunyu Xianxian. The two young girls were both rare beauties. They each had their own temperaments that made people's hearts flutter. Chapter 1835. The experts of the clans were respected. Although the four of them looked rather young, beautiful maids immediately came forward to serve spirit fruits and wine. Although the Su clan had set up a banquet to entertain the experts who had come to help them kill the ferocious beasts, the seats of the experts in the main hall were clearly arranged according to the strength of their relatives. The stronger one was the closer to the seat of honor in the main hall. Qin Feng and the other three had not shown their abilities, were not famous, and looked young. Obviously, no one took them seriously. The Su clan expert who had led them and obviously treated them as scammers. Although polite and humble, he was obviously not enthusiastic. He threw the four of them to the back of the main hall and ran to warmly entertain the old seniors in the front row. When Zia saw this scene, her face was full of anger. Others did not know Qin Feng's ability, but how could they not? In this main hall, how could some bullshit seniors of the clans have the same ability as her Uncle Qin? She was about to grab the Su clan's maid and argue, but she was stopped by Luo Chang. Qin Feng's expression did not change. He did not care to accompany the last seat. Strength was not a competition of appearance or fame. Qin Feng did not want to make a move for the time being, but there were already people who had their eyes on him, especially when they saw the two peerless beauties seemed to be particularly intimate with him. They burned with jealousy. A pair of eyes faintly looked at the exquisite bodies of the two women, and a trace of fire could not be removed. His gaze turned, and among the experts of the rogue cultivators who had come to help, one of them slammed the table and stood up. He cupped his hands together towards the many experts in the seats and shouted in a clear voice, "Let's go. Shangwan, Yin admires you for coming from all over to help the Su clan. But since we came to help, we naturally have some ability. Since the host is unknown, why don't we show him a thing or two? First, to let the host be mentally prepared, so that he could be deployed at will. He cupped his hands towards the empty space on the main seat, then swept his gaze across the hall. His gaze swept over Qin Feng and Zia, and after a moment he said, "Secondly, it's to prevent some people from making up the numbers and ruining our plan to kill the dire beasts." After that, Zia clearly felt that this guy called Shangguan Yin was looking at her with an inexplicable gaze. He cultivated the 9 godly arts, so his spiritual sense was far superior to his peers. As for Qin Feng, there was no need to even mention him. He had long since sensed that there seemed to be people who harbored enmity towards them. As for the reason, Qin Feng shook his head after glancing at the green-clothed girl and the linen-clothed girl who had already recovered their appearances. As soon as Guan Yin finished speaking, a young man with a golden crown on his head and a pure white brocade robe who was seated near the front chuckled. "You're right." His expression was extremely conceited. "Since we have rushed over to help, it is only right for us to display some of our skills so that we can live up to the Su family's hospitality. What do you all think?" "What nonsense are you talking about? You're making us, who are here to help, act like monkeys in the hall." After that, Zia also saw some clues and muttered with a tinge of jealousy in her mouth. Qin Feng glanced at her, and his gaze fell on the young man with a golden crown on his head who looked like a prince. He had heard many wandering cultivators mention the origin of this young man. He seemed to be a prince of the Water Manor's mermaid clan in Shushui. The mermaid clan was one of the many foreign races in the various water systems. The Water Manor ruled over the various water systems, and the mermaid clan was a foreign race that lived in the water systems. Many of them worked for the Water Manor, so their status was not lower than some of the large clans. The largest branch of the mermaid clan was the Jiang clan, and this prince was from the Jiang clan of Shushui. There were many princes of the mermaid clan, and Qin Feng did not put this prince in his eyes. He did not expect this prince to be so reckless and actually dared to come out and seek death. The hearing of everyone present was not weak. Although Zia was only muttering softly, her voice was almost directly in the ears of all the experts in the hall. After looking at Zia, a fierce light flashed across Jianglan's face, but in the blink of an eye, it turned into an indifferent smile, as if she did not care at all. However, she was secretly ruthless in her heart. "I only wanted your beauty, woof woof. Since you dare to mock me, you will not be able to bear the consequences today." On the seats, the experts of the various clans looked at Jianglan with a chuckle. After Zia, they did not agree or speak, but their eyes were secretly laughing. On the other side, when Shangguan Yin saw his master being humiliated, he immediately felt the same way. He was furious and made up his mind that this time, he would definitely teach Zia a lesson. "Shangguan disobeys. I am willing to throw a brick to attract jade for everyone." He directly jumped out, and under his control, a continuous castle appeared on the ground. Although the castle was small, it looked lifelike. Many strange gold stones, diamonds, beautiful jade, and agate also grew out from the castle. They looked magnificent and abnormally beautiful. Earth Spirit Clan? Seeing this scene, the eyes of many experts of the various clans moved slightly. The Shangguan clan was probably from the Earth Spirit civilization. Using the power of the Earth Spirit to mobilize the power of the Earth was quite famous among the subordinate clans around the Su clan. Gu Yin was only an ancient stage expert, but he was able to control the power of the Earth Spirit to such a miraculous extent. He was indeed quite skilled, especially those gold stones, diamonds, beautiful jade, and agate. Without a deep understanding of the Earth Spirit, it was impossible to grow these gold stones and minerals out of thin air. Soon, many little people grew out of the soil in the magnificent castle. Those little people were dressed in gorgeous clothes. Some were high up, some were dancing, and many were acting like servants, massaging the legs of the high and mighty figures in the middle. These little people formed from the soil were really like real people. Their skin was also lifelike and even dignified. Their expressions were so vivid that it was surprising. Even the sound of the musical instruments in the hall was crisp and pleasant, and the sound echoed in the hall. However, when they took a closer look, some of the experts of the various clans were delighted. The high and mighty figure in the middle was surrounded by many gorgeous half-naked women. The person who served him was none other than the mermaid prince, Jianglan. When Jianglan saw this scene, he was stunned at first, but then he smiled and glanced at the flattering Shangguan Yin with a hint of praise. The green-clothed girl, Luo Chong, and the linen-clothed girl, Chunyu Xianxian, suddenly looked as cold as frost. Among the women who served Jianglan in the center, the two of them looked like they were there. Qin Feng and Zia appeared among a group of servile servants who were massaging Jianglan's legs. They were trying to curry favor with him and were massaging his legs. They looked like clowns. There were all kinds of training and ugliness among them. The mermaid prince, Jianglan, and some other experts of the various clans chuckled. Chapter 1836. Many experts looked at Qin Feng and the other three purely to see a joke. Zia's face was pale with anger. Uncle Qin, his eyes were filled with anger like a volcano. Luo Chong and Chunyu Xianxian also looked over. It doesn't matter. Today I'll kill him. Qin Feng looked indifferent. He looked at the center of the hall and the castle on the ground. His divine consciousness moved and a trace of mighty force descended. In an instant, Shangguan Yan's expression changed drastically. He felt that he had completely lost control of the miniature castle above the hall. For some reason, not only him, but even the mermaid Prince Jianglan shrank and entered the miniature castle. The miniature castle's style changed in an instant. The heavenly palace-like scene changed abruptly, as if it had turned into an Azura hell. Outside the miniature castle, groups of terrifying Azuras rushed in, directly capturing the merman Prince Jianglan and Shangguan Yin, who were still in a daze after being shrunk to enter the miniature castle. What followed was an incomparably cruel scene. Qin Feng was angry at the rudeness of these two people, so he simply demonstrated all kinds of tortures that were said to be used by the big clans, as well as all kinds of punishments that he had gone through along the way. All kinds of tortures directly tortured the two of them until they became idiots whose souls were completely numb. Many of the experts present were baffled, not understanding why the atmosphere had changed so drastically. Only some of the experts at the top of the rankings were able to see through the situation. They knew that Jianglan and Shangguan Yin might have kicked an iron plate. Their faces changed drastically as they looked at Qin Feng in shock. The experts of the other clans also quickly realized that something was wrong. As the secret technique dissipated, Jianglan and Shangguan Yin, who had been tortured tens of thousands of times, lay on the ground in a daze. They twitched from time to time and drooled. Their eyes were like stones, completely numb. Good. This secret technique is really good. It can even turn you into an idiot. It's really rare and admirable. Zia reacted later. She glanced at Qin Feng and was the first to stand up from her seat. She clapped her hands and laughed. How audacious! You all actually dared to use secret methods to kill the mermaid prince. The hall instantly boiled over. Someone stood out and stared coldly at Qin Feng and the other three. It was a clan expert ranked second on the left. He was dressed in a black robe and had a white beard. At this moment, his face was full of anger. He was a very famous late-stage king stage expert. Gazai clan. This expert from the Guasia clan was from a very civilized rogue cultivator clan located near the Su-Du River. He obtained the surname from the Su clan and created the Guasia clan on his own. He had a deep relationship with the mermaid races Jiang clan and Shushui and was often an honored guest of the mermaid race. Seeing Jianglan die, he immediately decided to take revenge for Jianglan and repay Ben under the mermaid race. Seeing that the Ghost Father Needle was facing the four of them, Zia was the first to react. Your Excellency, please don't distort the truth. It's obvious that Shangguan Yin was not strong enough. He failed to show off his secret technique and ended up killing himself. You say we killed the mermaid prince by showing off our secret technique? Do you have any proof? With Qin Feng as her backing, Zia's words were very forceful. Luo Chong and Chunyu Xianxian also stood up, their slender hands grabbing the weapons beside them. Proof? Of course the Ghost Father had no proof. Once I capture you, I have my ways to make you talk. The Ghost Father looked coldly at Qin Feng and the others, the murderous intent in his eyes undisguised. With a furious roar, a black mist seemed to appear around him. A formless wave of terror appeared and attacked the depths of the four's souls. The Ghost Father's surname power was the most unique. It was related to the soul and could be used to create all sorts of unique soul weapons. There were soul conches, soul scythes, soul swords, soul fires, soul chains, and so on. This kind of power was quite unique. At the very least, it could suppress cultivators of the same level. This was the Ghost Father's trump card. The surname power above his head formed a formless soul conch. When the conch blew, no matter how strong one was, they would lose their wits in an instant, and their limbs would go limp. But when used against Qin Feng, it was like kicking an iron plate. Qin Feng's expression didn't change, but there was a trace of surprise on his face. He was in need of a powerful character as a gift to the Su family. The Ghost Father had delivered himself to his doorstep and solved his urgent need. Fire. Qin Feng spat out a single word. In an instant, everyone saw Qin Feng extend a hand, and a small cluster of flames shot out from his fingertips. He lightly blew out a breath, and an extremely dazzling fiery red brilliance suddenly enlarged. In that instant, everyone felt as if their bodies were being digested by the fire. The Ghost Father's expression changed drastically. The terrifying fire exploded and engulfed him, turning him into dust. Seeing this scene, the hall instantly became dead silent. A late-stage king-level cultivator died, just like that. A king-stage powerhouse. Any clan that gave birth to such a powerhouse could instantly establish a large clan, such as the Bull clan and the Lu clan, entrenching themselves in a region. In some large clans, every time a king-level cultivator appeared, they would hold a banquet to celebrate. Qin Feng retracted his hand, and the fire dissipated. He smiled. Looks like you won't be able to get any evidence from us. He looked around at some of the clan cultivators in the hall. I wonder if there's anyone else who wants to get evidence from the Zia clan. In the hall, seeing Qin Feng's killing methods, no one dared to make an enemy out of him. Among them, the two leaders were only slightly stronger than the Guizhai clan leader. Didn't they see that the Ghost Father was killed before he could even make a sound? Why would they fight to the death for the sake of a merman prince? Your Excellency, you're truly skilled. Such powerful fire elemental energy. You're no weaker than any emperor-level cultivator. I wonder which clan you're from. My Su clan has failed to welcome you. Just as everyone was silent, from behind the curtains on one side of the hall came a hearty laugh. A man in hemp robes with a unique aura walked out from behind the curtains. Behind him were several powerful cultivators from the Su clan. He had a smile on his face and had a magnanimous aura. He looked extremely friendly and had an amiable temperament within his dignified aura. Especially when his gaze landed on Qin Feng, there was an additional sense of generosity and temperament. However, looking at this person, Qin Feng sneered inside. This person had arrived early in the morning and had been waiting at the door, watching everyone fight. When the Ghost Father wanted to capture the four people, he could have attacked, but he hid to the side and watched. He was an extremely cold-blooded person. Chapter 1837. Su Jin was the patriarch of the Su clan and the only emperor-stage powerhouse within tens of thousands of kilometers of Su. He naturally had his ways. Perhaps it was because he was worshipped by many clans of various sizes, but he had an extremely strong aura of a superior. Seeing Su Jin appear, the powerhouses of the clans at the front hurriedly stood up to welcome him. Greetings, Lord Su Jin. They spoke out of respect. Su Jin's gaze fell on some of the powerhouses at the front. His gaze fell on a powerhouse who wore a headscarf, and had his long hair woven into countless small whips. He carried a long saber on his back. Under that powerhouse's seat, there was a huge black snake behind him. The snake's head was raised high and appeared on his shoulder. Enan. This was a wandering powerhouse of the Sioux clan. He had been staying in a small clan affiliated with the Sioux clan for the past few years, and was one of the powerhouses of that small clan. This was a powerhouse of the En clan of the Jiang clan. The En clan was a great noble clan north of Jiang River. They were extremely powerful, although they did not have much influence south of Jiang River. Their connections could not be underestimated. In the past, the two of them had interacted many times. He did not expect Enan to be alarmed this time. However, when he thought of the conditions he offered, it was not surprising that he attracted a peak king stage powerhouse. Although he thought highly of him, Su Jin still only nodded. Seeing Su Jin's attitude, Enan's gaze moved slightly. He was somewhat displeased, but he immediately suppressed this trace of discomfort. Su Jin had broken through to the Emperor stage a few years ago. Although the Emperor stage and the Peak King stage were only half a step away, this half step was already worlds apart in status. No matter where they went, Emperor stage powerhouses had noble and lofty statuses. Qi Xiu of the Qi clan greets Lord Su Jin. On the other side, a rather thin woman dressed in colorful clothes with a pitch-black face stood up. The most eye-catching thing was that there were a few five-colored spiders crawling on one of her arms. The crawling sounds were hair-raising. The Qi clan was originally a rather large clan that lived around Sudu, but they had fallen in the attack of the ferocious beasts. Qi Xiu was a rather legendary woman. When the Qi clan was torn apart by the ferocious beasts, she had no choice but to hide in the mountains with a portion of the old and weak. While hiding, most of the old and weak of the Qi clan died on the way. Her children who had not grown up had died on the way, but she had another fortuitous encounter. Not only did she not die, but she also cultivated some extremely powerful secret techniques. She had encountered a poisonous beast that was close to a desolate god. She obtained a part of the ability to control over of poison. Her surname Strength. From a myriad poisons event, he had learned many secret techniques that allowed him to control all kinds of deadly poisons. Relying on this secret technique, not only did this woman lead the remaining members of the Qi clan out of the mountain range, she even reclaimed a sizable territory. Many experts of the clans had suffered losses in her hands. In the surrounding clans, large and small, the fierce name of the Spider Mother was enough to make children stop crying in the middle of the night. TSK to SK. I wonder if the Su family's promise still counts. The Qi clan was not as respectful as Enan. Her ferocious eyes were filled with undisguised greed and viciousness. Su Jin saw it, but did not care. He glanced at Qin Feng and the others and laughed heartily. Yes, of course I'll keep my word. All the experts who participate in the battle will be rewarded according to their merits, as long as they can hurt the ferocious beast. They will be given all kinds of spiritual fruits and treasures, and even the clan's offerings. The Su clan will keep their word. After Ziya, Chunyu Xianxian and Luo Chong also stood up from their seats. Qin Feng also stood up from his seat. They watched as Qin Feng walked over. Whether it was the experts of the other clans, Enan, or the two famous Peak King stage experts of the Qi clan, they all subconsciously made way for him. Earlier, Qin Feng's methods had left a very deep impression on them. Although Qin Feng did not reveal any aura, Su Jin felt a huge pressure from the bottom of his heart when he saw Qin Feng walk over. Although he was shocked, Su Jin's expression did not change. He looked over and smiled. May I know who this senior is? Qin Feng raised his eyebrows. Ziya understood and immediately walked out and said in a deep voice, This is one of the patriarchs of the Ziya clan, Ziya Qin Feng. Patriarch. Hearing this, the pupils of many experts from the clans constricted slightly. Even Enan and the Qi clan, who were close by, had a slight change in expression. Patriarchs were not something that just anyone could be respected as patriarchs in the various clans. Only experts above the Emperor stage could be called patriarchs by the various clans. After Su Jin advanced to the Emperor stage, He had the qualifications to be respected as a patriarch by the Sioux clan. In the clans, there were a few experts who were worshipped by the clan. Generally speaking, only people at the level of patriarchs could be moved to the center of the clan temple during the sacrificial ceremony. Everyone's gaze changed slightly, and many of them secretly rejoiced. Even though they had some guesses earlier, how could it compare to the shock of being announced directly? At the same time, they rejoiced that they were not as impulsive as Jiang Lan and the others. Or else, if they offended a patriarch at the emperor stage, their future days would not be easy. People of the Ziya clan. Su Jin was shocked inwardly, and then a trace of understanding flashed across his eyes. There were rarely any emperor stage experts around Su Du, however. If it was the Ziya clan, then it made sense. The Ziya clan was deeply rooted and had a strong foundation. They were also the overlord of the southern Zhang prefecture. Most of the emperor stage experts appeared in this sect. So it's a senior of the Ziya clan. No wonder your understanding of the profound mysteries of fire is so profound. This time, to be able to get the help of an expert of the Ziya clan to kill the evil beast, we will definitely succeed. Su Jin's expression did not change. He was still straightforward, but one could clearly feel that he had become more intimate. When Ziya saw this scene, she was slightly proud. Inwardly, she was extremely proud that the Ziya clan had recruited this Yunqin senior into the clan. He could feel that the gazes of the surrounding people landed on them. Surprise, shock, respect. Many gazes were different, but there was no longer the contempt and coldness from before. After the group of people introduced themselves, Su Jin did not continue to be courteous and sat down according to the host and guest. This time, the four of them were invited to sit at the head of the table to show respect. After Ziya, Chunyu Xianxian and Luo Chong also basked in the light and sat behind Qin Feng. They could be said to have gained a lot of prestige. They could clearly feel that many people in the main hall looked at them with a slightly fervent gaze. In the main hall, after some formalities, Su Jin directly spoke about the matter of the evil beast, as well as the arrangements to kill the evil beast on the second day. Chapter 1838. The next day, above the Sioux River, the muddy river was surging. Two huge ships were sailing on the waves. On the ships, many powerhouses of the clans were gathered. On the ships, the battle flags of the clans with black and gold borders stood in great numbers, giving off an extremely terrifying majesty. From afar, the two huge ships looked like huge monsters. On the deck, many powerhouses of the clans were gathered together. Many people were holding weapons, looking excited and nervous. Some young powerhouses of the clans even had red and hot faces. After Ziya, Chunyu Xianxian and Luo Shang stood beside Qin Feng. Su Jin stood at the very front. He was wearing a warrior's robe and a black and gold cape. His figure was slender and tall, and he had a domineering aura about him. Behind him, there were many powerhouses of the Sioux clan wearing black robes with gold threads. Each of them had weapons on their backs, and their auras were iron-blooded. One could tell at a glance that they were warriors who had fought hundreds of battles. The most peculiar thing was that they each had a bundle of special hemp rope on their bodies. On the right side were Nan, the Qi clan, a few king stage powerhouses, and more than 10 archaic stage powerhouses. There were more than 100 people on the deck, and almost all of them were famous figures of their clans. As for the king stage powerhouses like Nan and the Qi clan, they were even more famous. This side was extraordinary. Qin Feng stood on the deck and watched as the ship rode the wind and waves toward the intersection of the Sioux River and the Zhang River. His eyes flickered with an inexplicable expression. His extremely sensitive divine sense also sensed that there was another Emperor Stage powerhouse in the cabin. Other than that Emperor Stage powerhouse, there was another faintly discernible grand force in the Sioux River that seemed to be pushing the two ships forward at a rapid speed. Your Excellency, I'll need your help to deal with that beast this time. Sensing that they were approaching their target, Su Jin looked at Qin Feng. Qin Feng nodded. Of course. A mere beast emperor dares to cause trouble in our clan's territory. Naturally, we'll make sure it doesn't return. When Zia heard this, she felt exceptionally proud and could not help but straighten her body. Chunyu Xianxian and Luo Chong looked at each other. It was just a beast emperor. Perhaps only a powerhouse like Qin Feng could use such a term to describe a beast emperor. He changed to any other place. A beast emperor. A wild beast emperor was a complete disaster. Countless clans could become delicacies in the mouths of ferocious beasts because of one beast emperor. As the ship moved straight ahead, the experts of the underwater mansion pushed the waves forward, and the surging Zhang River appeared in their sight. Rumble. As if it had sensed something, the area around the delta formed by the intersection of the Su River and the Zhang River suddenly became turbulent. The sound of surging torrents could be heard for miles. The sailors on the two ships, as well as the people on the decks, immediately became somewhat unstable and swayed. "They're here. Everyone be careful." Sensing something, Su Jin shouted loudly. Many people were quick-witted and made a prompt decision. They grabbed onto the nearest objects, ropes, railings, and masts. In the next moment, a terrifying wave surged towards the two ships. "How dare you!" An extremely angry roar seemed to come from the bottom of the water, and a surging force met the attack. However, under the impact of this wave, it collapsed upon contact. The huge wave that was as tall as a two-story building was about to drown all the experts on the two ships, and even the ships felt like they were smashed to pieces. "Evil creature, do you really think this move will work?" Su Jin's expression changed, and then it turned cold. He waved his sleeve, and an ice-blue bead suddenly appeared. "See calming bead." When this bead appeared, several voices faintly emerged from the water. They carried a hint of astonishment, which was soon followed by a blazing heat. Among them, there was a beautiful woman in blue whose eyes were shining brightly. She was a king-level expert from the Liu family. The eyes of some water-type experts also lit up. The sea-calming bead was a kind of spiritual bead nurtured in a place with abundant water in the river. It contained the power of the river, and any water-type expert who stayed by it for a long time could not only rapidly improve their water-type techniques, but also have incredible invisible power. It could control the power of the river and turn it into a surging force to defend oneself against enemies. If one stood in the middle of the river and had a sea-calming bead, even an expert one level higher would find it difficult to break through their defense in a short time. The sea-calming bead, which was the size of a goose egg, emitted a blue light under Su Jin's control. It was visible to the naked eye, and the surging waves seemed to have met their nemesis. They were attracted by the sea-calming bead, and like a whale sucking in water, they suddenly disappeared into the sea-calming bead. Seeing this scene, Su Jin was secretly delighted. This sea-calming bead could indeed restrain water-type exotic beasts. It was not in vain that he personally borrowed the sea-calming bead from the Zhangshui underwater residence. Rumble. In front of him, huge waves surged. Vaguely, a huge shadow emerged from under the huge waves. One could see a huge dark shell that was dozens of feet wide. Two red, lantern-like pupils were faintly discernible in the surging mist. Looking at the sea-calming bead in Su Jin's hand, anyone could sense the monster's greed for the sea-calming bead. The huge beast sensed that swallowing the bead would be extremely beneficial to it. It could greatly increase its cultivation, allowing it to complete its transformation earlier. At the same time, some people had already seen the huge beast's true body. It was a turtle, a huge golden turtle. Qin Feng's eyes flickered as he watched this scene. It was rumored that his third senior brother, the primogenitor Lingbao, the Aquamarine Palace, was built on a huge golden turtle. This golden turtle was clearly not as huge as the one that carried the Aquamarine Palace, but it was probably no less ferocious. According to Su Jin, a new water, I seem to have been born under the delta where Su Shui and Zhang Shui intersected. That was why this huge beast emperor was attracted. This huge beast emperor was already at the point of transformation. It only needed to occupy the water, and cause its bloodline to transform again. Then, it could awaken a trace of the power of the rage god and complete the transformation of a pre-desolate beast. Desolate beasts needed to be born from the earth veins. They needed some special places to complete their transformation. The water eye under the delta was extraordinarily attractive to the beast emperor that accidentally discovered it. The Sioux family had no objections to the golden turtle occupying the water eye. But when the golden turtle occupied the water eye, it did not forget to swallow the creatures in the underwater residence and destroy the Sioux family's merchant ships. This completely enraged the Sioux Shui underwater residence and the Sioux family. However, with the water eye and the power of the water eye, the golden turtle's power was even greater than Sioux Shui's water god. After several battles, the Sioux Shui underwater residence and the Sioux family were defeated. The golden turtle was not an ordinary beast. Its intelligence was not inferior to that of a martial monarch expert. When it sensed that its innate ability was restrained by the sea calming bead, it immediately changed its tactics. Chapter 1839. Rumble. It was as if a huge whirlpool had formed at the intersection of the Sioux River and the Zhang River. On the ship, Qin Feng's sharp eyes saw that the four legs of the golden turtle in the center of the water eye were moving quickly. It was spinning on the spot, and its huge body was like a spinning top. With the water eye as the center, it formed a deep whirlpool that was hundreds of feet long. The two ships were involuntarily pulled by the suction force of the huge whirlpool and tilted toward the water eye. On the ship, many clans hurriedly grabbed the railings and ropes beside them to stabilize their bodies as the ship tilted unsteadily. But there were also people who didn't roll physically and mentally. They rolled like gourds, along with the tilted deck, to unknown places and even fell into the surging river, being sucked into the deep water whirlpool and becoming the food of the golden sea turtle. A hold on tight. Help! Some of the weaker clans were directly swept up by the shocking suction force and flew out of the deck and into the whirlpool. Qin Feng stood on the spot. Ziyu was behind him, and Chunyu Xianxian and Luo Shang were beside him. A force that was as stable as Mount Tai helped them stabilize their bodies, and they did not move at all. No matter how the deck shook and the suction force rose into the air, it could not shake their bodies at all. When Madame Qi, who was beside Yinan, saw this scene, her expression changed slightly. She immediately swept a glance behind her and saw the chaotic scene on the ship. Her eyes flashed with a strange light, and her figure changed. In an instant, she turned into a colorful light and flew away. She moved quickly on the ship like a colorful light. In an instant, strange spider webs appeared on the ship, locking the cabin and the railings in place. The sticky spider webs instantly became an excellent foothold. Su Jin's eyes lit up when he saw this, and he immediately shouted loudly. Everyone grabbed the spider webs. At the same time, his body leaped, and like a yellow light, he appeared on the mast in an instant. Freeze! Looking at the Dinghai Pearl in his hand, he activated it with an incantation. The Dinghai Pearl once again displayed its power, and a magnificent power that could freeze mountains and rivers spread out. The light swept across, and the suction force of the whirlpool formed in the center of the water I seemed to have frozen. The water power of the whirlpool hundreds of feet around the water I seemed to have been completely suppressed by the Dinghai Pearl. Seeing this, a smile appeared on Su Jin's face. No matter how ferocious the golden turtle was, it would be restrained by the sea-calming pearl. Maybe, with this treasure, he could monopolize the killing of the golden turtle and gain face in the Zhangshui Divine Palace. On the deck, Qin Feng saw Su Jin's expression and understood what he was thinking. A sneer flashed across Qin Feng's eyes. It was too early for Su Jin to celebrate. However, it was almost time for him to make his move. Rumble. Not long after, just as Qin Feng had predicted, before Su Jin could celebrate for too long, a heaven-shaking boom came from beneath the water eye. Immediately after, the faces of the experts from the various clans turned pale. Looking at Su Jin, who was spinning like a cannonball, shooting out from the bottom of the water and heading straight for the two large ships, he was already stunned. He did not expect that the seemingly clumsy golden turtle would have such a move. The ferocious beast's incomparably tyrannical body blasted forward like a rotating cannonball. Bang! In an instant, accompanied by the screams of many experts from the various clans, the two large ships were suddenly reduced to dust under the impact of the golden turtle. Su Jin activated the sea calming pearl at the last moment, and the master and disciple used the power of the river to resist the violent impact. However, he was also knocked back in an instant and spat out a mouthful of blood. His body flew backward, and many of his ribs were broken. At the critical moment, in the cabin, a yellow light soared into the sky, grabbed Su Jin's body, and sped away. Many of the experts from the various clans who came to help on the two large ships were not so lucky. As they cried for their parents, they were smashed into pieces by the golden turtle. Only a few King Stage experts relied on their own strength to delay it for a few moments. However, after a few moments, under the terrifying impact of the golden turtle, they were also smashed into pieces. Among them, the strongest was Enan. Relying on his peak King Stage strength, Madame Chi sensed the danger in advance and flew away. Although she was hit, her flesh and blood collapsed, and she spat out blood. She followed the waves and escaped with serious injuries. The unexpected collision of the golden turtle almost defeated all the experts on the two large ships. However, there were exceptions. After Qin Feng grabbed Zia, Chunyu Xianxian and Luo Chang, in the light of the water, flashed and directly escaped 4 to 5 miles away. They were unscathed. Lord Qin Feng, is this the water escape secret technique of the 5 elements of the art of creation? Above the water, Luo Chang looked at her group of people walking out of the light of the water. Her beautiful eyes were full of shock. In the 5 elements, water and wood coexisted. She had already learned the wood escape secret technique of the 5 elements and had always coveted the water escape secret technique. The art of creation created by Qin Feng was quite magical. Although the 5 elements of the art of creation was called the escape secret technique, it actually included the secret technique of controlling the 5 elements. Anyone who cultivated it could directly become a desolate god and become a desolate god. Qin Feng had once said that the 3 of them could cultivate the wood, fire, and earth elements respectively. However, Luo Chang wanted to cultivate one more element or all 5 elements. As someone who had been reborn, she knew some secret techniques to expand the power of surnames. She could mutate or expand the power of a simple surname. However, Qin Feng did not answer Luo Chang's question. He casually saved the 3 of them and threw them above the water. His gaze fell on the huge golden turtle. It also sent Su Jin and the Monarch Stage expert in the cabin flying. The golden turtle still did not give up. As it spun, it opened its huge mouth. A terrifying icy power was born from its huge mouth and blasted towards Su Jin and the other Monarch Stage expert who was flying with Su Jin. The Monarch Stage expert had a special identity. He was also an expert of the Su clan. Moreover, he was the only remaining ancestor of the Su clan. Usually, this ancestor was overseeing the Su clan's mountain range. As a mountain god, he controlled the strange phenomena around Su Du. As a mountain god, he was undoubtedly quite tyrannical. His strength surpassed Su Jin, who had just broken through to the early monarch stage. However, after leaving the Su clan's mountain range, and without the support of the power of the ley lines, he could not exert much power on the Su River. On the contrary, the golden turtle sat on the water eye and had the help of the water eye's power. Even the water god of the Su River was suppressed by it. This was one positive and one negative. 2 differences, one like a natural chasm, were born. In the face of that terrifying cold current, even the Su clan's mountain god could not help but feel abnormally desperate. In the depths of the river, a surging will controlled the power of the entire Su River. It was a stalwart figure that seemed to have fused with the Su River. He roared again and again, trying to rescue them. However, under the suppression of the golden turtle's water eye, The surging will of the water god was suppressed to the extreme. He could not even control the power of the Sioux River for a short period of time. Chapter 1840. No. Looking at the terrifying chill that was coming at them, Sioux Jean and the mountain god of the Sioux clan could only let out desperate roars in panic. At this moment, a figure appeared out of thin air in front of them. Zia, Chin Fong, the two of them were stunned. Then, a scene that left the two of them dumbstruck appeared. Chin Fong stretched out a hand. A crimson flame appeared. In an instant, it was as if a huge sun had suddenly appeared. Rumble. The crimson sun collided with a huge golden turtle and sent it flying in an instant. Bang! When it fell into the water exploded and endless white waves churned. Faintly, earth-shattering roars of pain could be heard from the depths of the water. Seeing this, Sioux Jean, the mountain god of the Sioux clan, and even Lord Sioux Shui, who was underwater, were dumbfounded. They could not believe their eyes. Nan, who was lucky enough to escape with his life at the cost of serious injuries, and the Chi clan felt as if they had been hit in the head by a heavy hammer. They looked at the scene in a daze. Roar! Under the water, huge waves surged into the sky. Under the terrifying waves, a huge creature appeared. It was the golden turtle. Sizzle! White smoke appeared from its abdomen. Under the water vapor, a dark red color could be vaguely seen. It emitted a terrifying high temperature. That was the place where Chin Fong had hit. The blazing high temperature caused the golden turtle unbearable pain. A pair of lantern-like eyes stared at Chin Fong with a ferocious blood-red light. Roar! A heaven-shaking roar resounded. Golden turtle roared and rushed towards Chin Fong. It opened its bloody mouth and spat out a mouthful of cold air. I originally wanted to spare your life. Since you don't know what's good for you, I'll kill you here today. Seeing the golden turtle charging forward again without fear of death, Chin Fong shook his head. A faint, ghastly look appeared in his pitch-black eyes. He stretched out a hand again. Puffed. On his palm, the crimson flame turned golden. Gulp! When Sioux Jean and the mountain god of Sioux clan saw the small cluster of flames that did not reveal anything, for some reason, they suddenly felt a sense of terror rising from the bottom of their hearts. Under the water, Lord Sioux Shui could feel it even more clearly. He only felt the appearance of this small cluster of golden red flames, and the entire Shui that was now one with him seemed to tremble. It conveyed a terrifying emotion. Fear. It was as if that handful of golden red flames had the power to burn mountains and boil seas. Chin Feng's gaze was as cold as a dot. His palm curled like a nimble snake. Vaguely, Chin Fong recalled the fist art he had obtained for the first time after his rebirth. Fusing fire and water, he threw out a punch. At this moment, everyone behind Chin Fong felt as if all of Su Shui had been mobilized by Chin Feng's punch. One punch was enough to overturn rivers and seas. Bang! It directly blasted the oncoming golden AO into pieces. Countless pieces of flesh and blood flew everywhere. That sturdy structure that was strong enough to withstand the attack of an Emperor Stage cultivator suddenly exploded, as if it had collapsed. The huge dark tortoise shell flew into the sky. The golden AO that was about to advance to the Emperor Stage didn't even have time to grunt before it was finished off with a single punch. Such a terrifying scene caused all the experts of the clans present to be dazed. Chin Fong also stared at his fist in a daze. At the same time, a brand new comprehension rushed into the depths of his soul. Bang! 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 Crackle! It was as if countless thunderbolts came from the depths of his soul, following this sudden comprehension that seemed to flow naturally into his divine power. At this moment, whether it was his divine power, his flesh and blood, or even his eternal soul, Chin Fong felt a change that was close to being reborn. Almost instantly, his divine power was compressed and condensed hundreds of thousands of times. Feeling this change, a natural smile appeared on his face. After setting off from the Xia clan and passing through the territories of the Gong clan, the Liu clan, and the Su clan, after 2 months, with the help of the change in his state of mind, the Eternal Secret Codex finally advanced from the 4th heaven to the 5th heaven. At this point, this little change was equivalent to tens of thousands of years or even millions of years of painstaking comprehension. If he could be considered an expert in the 2nd realm of the eternal realm before, then now he had stepped into the threshold of the Lord of Heaven and caught up with those old antiques who had survived from the last Chaos era. Although he could only be considered a new Lord of Heaven, with the eternal true thunder at the peak of the 4th heaven, the difference between the current Qin Feng and the previous Qin Feng was like a chasm. Slightly withdrawing his palm and feeling the changes in his body, Qin Feng's expression returned to calmness. He just faintly felt every inch of change in his body, every trace of transformation of his divine power. It was like an eternal sacred body. The eternal law was being tempered by the eternal true thunder bit by bit, and it would undergo millions of transformations every moment. Let's go, we can go back now. With a flash of brilliance, Qin Feng took a step forward and appeared beside Su Jin and the mountain god of the Su clan. By the way, the Su clan won't forget the promise you posted, right? Qin Feng's gaze fell on Su Jin and the mountain god of the Su clan. Feeling the faint gaze and meeting the pair of dark eyes, Su Jin and the mountain god of the Su clan felt an invisible pressure appear in the depths of their hearts. We wouldn't dare. Almost instinctively, Su Jin and the mountain god of the Su clan couldn't help but gulp. By the time the two of them reacted, Qin Feng had already left with Xia. Chunyu Xianxian and Luo Chang had already left. 3 days later, at the docks of Su Du on the city wall, 3 figures watched as a large ship left. It smoothly descended and headed in the direction of Zhang River. The 3 figures had different expressions. Su Jin and the mountain god of the Su clan breathed a sigh of relief. They had finally sent away this terrifyingly capable expert. Lord Shui, on the other hand, had a look of joy on her face. From the beginning to the end, this terrifyingly capable expert had only asked for the ancestral sacrifice that the Su clan had promised him. As for the empty water eye, he had abandoned it like it was a worn-out shoe. The water eye contained the power of the water vein, which was comparable to a powerful river. The golden turtle sat on the water eye and suppressed him, the water lord, to the point that he couldn't even raise his head. If he could monopolize this water eye, there was no doubt about the benefits. What a pity! While Su Jin breathed a sigh of relief, he also felt a sense of regret. What's a pity? The mountain god of the Su clan raised his head and looked at this rather famous junior of the Su clan. It's a pity that I don't have the ability to support such an expert. Su Jin didn't hide his regret. Hearing this, the mountain god of the Su clan's expression flickered slightly. Su Du now had 2 monarch stage experts. A monarch stage expert completely had the qualifications to oversee a prefecture. Su Jin was different from him. He had only broken through to the monarch stage after becoming the mountain god. Su Jin had broken through to the monarch stage on his own. Such a monarch stage expert had the qualifications to build his own prefecture. Unfortunately, Su Du still lacked some prerequisites to build his own prefecture. The Su clan's foundation in the Heavenly Sacred Hall was still somewhat insufficient. However, after worshipping that expert, perhaps this tribe could speed up a few steps. The mountain god of the Su clan looked at the large ship in the distance. Chapter 1841. On the deck of the ship, Qin Feng sat cross-legged. Beside him was Xia, Luo Chang, Chunyu Xianxian, and the others, who were comprehending the changes in the tide. The profound mysteries of heaven and earth came from the same source. To a certain extent, some profound mysteries were shared. For example, in the tide, one's power could stack waves. Fire, wood, and earth elemental powers could also stack their power to attack in the same way. Qin Feng taught the 3 of them the fire mystic art, wood mystic art, and earth mystic art. The 3 of them took this opportunity to refine the benefits, they had obtained from the Sioux clan. The three of them each held a spiritual item in their hands. Thanks to Qin Feng received the ancestral worship of the Sioux clan and the clans around the Sioux clan. Although the three of them did not receive such treatment, they were still given the opportunity to choose a few spiritual items from the Sioux clan's inventory. After refining the spiritual items, they would be able to advance from a high-rank warrior to an ancient rank. On the deck, many sailors glanced at the four of them, their eyes filled with respect. Especially when they looked at Qin Feng, they were even more respectful. In the depths of Qin Feng's soul, there was an invisible blessing around the eternal life chart. Following the blessing of the invisible blessing, Qin Feng's spiritual force seemed to descend on the Sioux Du and the clans around the river. The invisible light of sacrifice followed this invisible connection and blessed the eternal life chart, causing it to gradually emit a golden light. Qin Feng felt that the origin of the inner world might be more than 10 times richer than the surface world. The ancestral worship of the Sioux clan here was almost comparable to half of the divine realm. It was completely comparable to the Asir divine realm that he had founded. If it were not for the inner world's rich heritage, how could a mere 100 clans give birth to such a rich blessing? In other words, it was easier for the inner world to give birth to powerhouses than the surface world. Qin Feng couldn't help but sigh in admiration. If those eternal powerhouses from the surface world discovered the inner world, then even if they had to take the risk of not being able to get out, those eternal powerhouses would most likely rush forward. Nanzhang Manor was a famous capital south of the Zhang River. It was extremely prosperous. The majestic ancient city stood to the south of Zhang River like a pearl. However, if one were to take a closer look, one would realize that this majestic ancient city was actually built on a huge underground volcano. A volcano faced a river. A place like this where water and fire intersected and gave birth to good fortune was an extremely rare treasure land. However, very few clans dared to settle their clan on top of a volcano. The earth-shattering volcanic eruption could easily turn the clan into ashes. However, a part of the clans under the command of the Jiang clan had never been afraid of the power of this volcano, especially a large clan like the Xia clan. Not only were they not afraid of volcanoes, they could even absorb the power of volcanoes and convert it into an endless stream of energy. There were 8 city gates in Nanzhang Prefecture. Almost every day, countless experts of the clans would enter this place through the 8 city gates. They would either settle down, trade, or seek opportunities. What countless clans yearned for the most was the famous Spirit Flame Academy in Nanzhang Prefecture. It was located on a hill near Nanzhang Prefecture. In the capital city, the manor lord had been an expert of the Xia clan for generations. In a magnificent and huge mansion, Ziyali sat on the huge seat of the manor lord. His eyes flickered. As the head of the Xia clan in this branch of Nanzhang Prefecture, there was no doubt about Ziyali's strength. Under the huge seat, there seemed to be one, and another. There were a total of 9 huge crimson divine dragons circling around. These tens of feet long, python-like crimson dragons were not formed by flames. They were real crimson dragons formed by the fire veins of heaven and earth. The crimson dragons circled around, and the flood dragons rotated their bodies, giving him a different kind of majesty. An unfamiliar expert of the Xia clan killed the beast Emperor Jin Ao with one blow. Thinking of the message he had just received from Su Du, Ziyali's expression changed. He was even more confused. The Xia clan was ranked lower among the 12 branches of the Jiang clan. It was not as prominent as the Yutai clan and the Zhurong clan. Ziyali was well aware of the experts in the Xia clan. However, he had never heard of an expert of the Xia clan called Xia Qinfeng. He was so powerful that he could defeat the beast Emperor Jin Ao with just a wave of his hand. Ziyali could not help but think of a secret order that the Flame Emperor Celestial Palace had sent to the 12 palaces, halls, and mansions some time ago. Pay attention to some experts that suddenly appeared. If they could capture the enemy, the reward would be extremely generous. They could even be directly rewarded by the Flame Emperor Celestial Palace and be promoted to origami. Thinking of the reward plan announced by the Flame Emperor Celestial Palace, even Ziyali, who was the head of a division, felt his heart throbbing and burning. To reach the sky in one step and become an origami was a great opportunity. This Zia Qin Feng in front of him was extremely suspicious. Should I report to the Heavenly Sacred Palace and ask them to investigate? As soon as this thought arose, Ziyali immediately suppressed it and shook his head slightly. During this period, it was not that no one had reported it, but most of them were not true. After a few times, some people were even reprimanded by the 12 palaces. The reprimand of the 12 palaces was one aspect. Another aspect was that this expert was born from the Xia clan. The Xia clan was scattered on the vast plains in front of the Zhang River. Before dispersing into the plains, they occupied a vast land with a radius of millions of miles. It was not impossible to hide one or two experts from the Xia clan. At this moment, outside the main hall, a series of footsteps could be heard. A wild-looking, red-clothed young woman with a gentle face walked in from outside the main hall. She walked to the front of the hall and bowed slightly. Clan leader. Looking at the swaying, red-clothed young woman, Ziyali looked up with an indifferent expression. Third sister, what's the matter? The red-clothed young woman was wearing a scarlet short skirt made of snake scales. Her slender and straight legs were outlined in an astonishing manner. Her chest was tall and straight, which was very astonishing. Her appearance was extremely gentle and charming, but there was a kind of almost natural indifference to her. Looking up at Ziyali, Ziyali's beautiful pair of cold eyes flickered with a faint mist. The Spiritual Flame Academy is about to start. I wonder if the clan leader is free to attend the trial ceremony. Spiritual Flame Academy? Ziyali raised his eyebrows slightly. This word caused his attention to shift away from Qin Feng. The experts from the Spiritual Flame Academy had always been the backbone of the Xia clan's governance of the Nanzhong residence. They could be said to be the disciples of the Xia clan. To the Xia clan, attending the trial ceremony to recruit students had a greater symbolic meaning. The Xia clan also needed to gather the elites from the various clans, especially since the Xia clan did not belong to Ziyali alone. Ziyali spoke. I will be there when the time comes. All right. Ziyali nodded and turned to leave. She did not want to stay with this cold and emotionless clan leader any longer. Wait. At this moment, a voice came from behind. Ziyali stopped and looked at Ziyali, who was sitting on the golden seat. Help me investigate someone while you're at it. Chapter 1842. Blazing Manor. This was the Nanzhong Manor, one of the mansions that was second only to the Manor Lord's office. The huge manor was built with golden red fire maple wood, and there was a hot spring inside, making it look extremely luxurious and grand. This was the Nanzhong Manor, the manor of a rather famous expert of the Xia clan, Xia Yan. Xia Yan was not as powerful as the clan leader, but he was still one of the famous elders of the Xia clan. In the center of the manor, there was a volcanic pool, and pieces of red fire crystals were cast on top of it. Crimson mist rose from the volcanic pool in the center. Whoosh whoosh. There seemed to be a rolling volcano behind him. The power of the surname was the most primitive of all, but as one's cultivation deepened, the power of the surname would gradually change. Usually, it would be refined into a form or a beast, like Xia Li, whose surname power could transform into a huge crimson dragon, or even an immortal dragon god body. There were also some that could transform into objects, like the Mountain Lord of the Sioux clan, who was influenced by the power of the mountain range and was forged into a terrifying divine mountain. Another example was the Water Lord of the Sioux Water, who refined the power of the surname into a river and combined it with the Sioux Water, becoming the Water Lord. With the replenishment of the Sioux Water, it might become a flood river that connected heaven and earth, or even become the water desolate god, controlling all water. It could also be like the Guage, who refined it into a weapon, becoming a mighty weapon that could shatter mountains and rivers. No matter which direction it would eventually be imprinted with all kinds of secret techniques, making it stronger and stronger, and even merging with the spirit to form a path of its own. Ziyin had obtained the power of the Nanzhang Manor and refined a volcano with the fire vein. He could control the power of the fire vein, which was extremely powerful. Just as Ziyali received the news, Ziyin also received the news. Expert of the Ziya clan, sitting cross-legged by the volcanic pond, the thick red fire mist emitted from the pond unceasingly. It was like a whale sucking in water for the volcano's shadow behind him. Every time it absorbed a little bit of the fire mist, the volcano's shadow would become more solid and its temperature would rise a little bit. Ziyan's eyes were a little gloomy, thinking of the important matter in his heart. His eyes were filled with a hint of irritation and coldness. Why did there have to be a change just as that important matter was about to arrive? Damn you! Thinking of this, Ziyan couldn't help but curse. When he thought of how his chess pieces had been destroyed by this expert from the Ziya clan who had suddenly appeared, a nameless fire burned in his eyes. No matter how incompetent I am, I can't let him come to Nanzhang Manor, at the very least, before the general trend is completed. Ziyan's eyes flickered and she took out the resonance conch. The Heavenly Sacred Palace was one of the 4 palaces under the Zhangshui Divine Palace. The 4 halls under the Zhangshui Divine Palace were located north and south of Zhangshui. When Ziyin activated the same sound conch, an important figure in the 100 clans of the Jiang clan had noticed it. Combining the situation reported by Ziyin, this high-level spy from the Qi clan instantly gave instructions to Ziyin to calm down. At the same time, this high-level spy immediately contacted another group of chess pieces in the Jiang clan's territory near the Nanzhang mansion to attack, to ensure that the overall situation remained the same. After this adjustment, various changes immediately occurred. Above Zhangshui, huge waves surged. The thick waves were like an overturning sea, unparalleled. On the big ship, Qin Feng opened his eyes from his meditation. As he obtained more clan sacrifices, Qin Feng's understanding of the origin of the inner world became deeper. Like the surface world, the spiritual sense of the eternal heaven monarch was gradually unraveling as the inner world suppression was released. Especially when it came to a part of his karma, many changes could be deduced in a short period of time. He could almost deduce a part of the future changes in a short period of time with just a thought. A leaf knows autumn. The cicada senses autumn before the autumn wind blows. It was difficult to describe this mysterious realm with words. Looking in the direction of the Nanzhang mansion, Qin Feng's eyes flickered with a strange light. There seemed to be a good show going on there. He could vaguely see 2 invisible forces that were not inferior to his starting a preliminary test and game in the Nanzhang mansion. One of the forces was vaguely stronger than him. Qin Feng could sense that it was the power of the Flame Emperor Celestial Palace. It seems that the Jiang clan's god is not without enemies. His eyes flickered with a strange light. At this time, the Eternal Secret Codex had advanced further, and he had taken the opportunity to become an eternal heaven monarch. Although he had not yet reached the threshold of the eternal divine ancestor, Qin Feng was no longer afraid of the Flame Emperor. Perhaps he could do something. But immediately, Qin Feng shook his head. Now, there were undercurrents surging in the Jiang clan. He could vaguely see a few forces that were not inferior to the Jiang clan's god. It was better for him to hide his tracks and not show himself for the time being. He did not want to alarm these supreme wills that were in the game, but he should be able to take advantage of the situation and make a fortune. The Flame Emperor Celestial Palace, on the floating island that Qin Feng had glanced at before. In the depths of the Celestial Palace, tens of thousands of flowers floated. Under a fiery red heavenly tree, a middle-aged emperor in a crimson robe sat cross-legged under the tree. He looked deeply at the vast territory of the Jiang clan. As the Jiang clan's god and the owner of the Flame Emperor Celestial Palace, The Flame Emperor was worshipped by the entire Jiang clan. His every breath seemed to be one with the earth and the firmament. He had transcended time and had incredible power. In his eyes, he could vaguely see countless clans living and using the power of fire. In his eyes, he could see countless kinds of flames burning fiercely. It was as if heaven and earth were born in this intense crimson torrent. Under his gaze, the entire land occupied by the Jiang clan was filled with crimson flames, while the land occupied by the Ji clan's yellow emperor was filled with earthy yellow flames. The Qi clan, the Headhunter clan, the Rong clan, the Si clan, and the Ying clan had other colors. Among the surrounding clans, his Jiang clan, the Ji clan occupied by the yellow emperor, the Si clan occupied by Emperor Yu, and the Ying clan occupied by the Sage Emperor were the strongest. The Qi clan was slightly second, followed by the Headhunter clan, the Rong clan, and a few smaller clans. The clans occupied land, and each had their own clan aura. For example, the Jiang clan was of the fire attribute, and their clan aura was crimson. The Ji clan was of the earth attribute, and their clan aura was earthy yellow. Emperor Yu and the Sage Emperor were of the water attribute, and their clan aura was black. Although they were both black, due to their own unique characteristics, the aura they displayed was different. However, the Jiang clan's clan aura was indeed somewhat impure in the Flame Emperor's hands. It was no longer pure red, and there were traces of other colors that were hard to see with the naked eye at the edges. If he had not improved his abhijna during this period, he would not have noticed this change. This was very shocking. This meant that other clans were infiltrating the Jiang clan. Chapter 1843. The situation was like a chessboard. The Jiang clan's dragon had been vaguely surrounded and nibbled away bit by bit, waiting for the opportunity to be swallowed. The Flame Emperor looked at the Jiang clan's territory. His eyes flashed like flames as he waved his sleeves. Several streams of light flew out of the floating island from his hand and scattered all over the 12 sacred palaces under the Flame Emperor. These streams of light were like an invisible hand that began to control the chessboard. Imperceptibly, an invisible change began to take place on the chessboard. The red aura that seemed to be formed by the Jiang clan surged. He did not begin to devour the various clan auras that entered the Jiang clan's territory. Instead, he acted as if he did not notice it at all. However, in reality, an undercurrent had already been mobilized in the center of the Jiang clan. The Flame Emperor was playing a big game of chess, and the surrounding clans did not notice it. Above the Jiang River, Qin Feng also did not notice the change. However, out of caution, Qin Feng decided to wait until he saw the chessboard clearly before making his move. Therefore, he decided to stay away from the Jiang River for the time being. However, even if he wanted to leave, he would not leave voluntarily. Suddenly, Qin Feng's expression changed as he looked above the vast Jiang River. The opportunity has arrived. A glimmer of light flashed in Qin Feng's eyes. Rumble. The originally calm Jiang River suddenly had a torrent from the center. It was noon, but thick black clouds appeared above their heads. Amid the rumbling, thunder filled the sky. Why are there suddenly so many dark clouds? The noisy discussions of many sailors could be heard as they looked at the sky. Chunyu Xianxian, Luo Chang, and Zia also looked up at the sky. The weather is unpredictable. Zia frowned slightly. I'm afraid it's not as simple as the weather being unpredictable. Luo Chang's beautiful eyes looked above the water. As a reincarnator, coupled with the secret treasure she had obtained in Su-Du, her strength had advanced to the ancient stage. However, her powerful spiritual sense was comparable to some Archean stage experts. She could clearly sense some changes under the water. Chunyu Xianxian glanced at Luo Chang with her beautiful eyes. Although she was not convinced, she had to admit that she was inferior to Luo Chang in terms of one-on-one combat, various methods, and knowledge. It's the merfolk. Qin Feng, who was sitting cross-legged, suddenly stood up. Mermaid. The expressions of the three changed. Previously, I killed a merman prince in Su-Du. Now that the mermen have caught up, I'm afraid they won't let this matter rest. Qin Feng's expression was calm as he looked at the three of them. You guys follow the ship to Nanjong Manor first. I'll stay behind to deal with these mermen. Ziya was stunned and looked at Qin Feng. Uncle Qin, could it be that you can't do anything to the merfolk with your strength? Qin Feng looked at the surface of the water and said indifferently, Of course I'm not afraid, but mermaids are a big race in Zhang River. If you get involved, it will affect your future. Ziya immediately fell silent. Even though she was only from a remote branch of the Ziya clan, Ziya knew the strength of the merfolk very well. They occupied Zhang River and the various branches of Zhang River. They could be said to be a famous clan. The merfolk's strength might not be outstanding, but their influence was definitely not to be ignored. The merfolk's race was rich in beauties. In the mansions on both sides of Zhang River, and even in several halls, many experts had beautiful merfolk concubines. The energy contained within was extremely terrifying. Seeing Ziya's expression, Qin Feng's eyes flashed with indifference. At this point, the fate between the two of them had come to an end. Ziya did not know that once she left, she would very likely lose a huge leg. Her thoughts were still on the merfolk. Seeing this, Qin Feng directly went to Zhang River and appeared above it in a flash. However, at this moment, a stream of light essence descended. Green clothes fluttered, bright eyes and white teeth. Qin Feng's gaze fell on Luo Chang. Master Qin Feng, Luo Chang is willing to fight against the merfolk army with you. Luo Chang's beautiful eyes were calm, but there was a trace of craftiness in the depths. She was much more perceptive than Ziya. Although she did not know how strong Qin Feng was, she vaguely felt that he was very likely to be the mysterious teacher behind the wilderness god in the legends. This was a huge leg to rely on. What was a mere spiritual flame academy? Even if the best seat in the entire heavenly sacred hall was placed in front of her, compared to following this mysterious expert in front of her, she would have to think twice. In her opinion, Ziya going to Nanjong Manor was like picking up sesame seeds and throwing away a watermelon. Brother Ziya, should we? Beside her, Chinyu Xianxian looked at the surface of the river and bit her pink lips. Ziya clenched her fists, somewhat hesitant. Qin Feng's strength was undoubtedly powerful. Following such a powerful existence, her gains during this period were enough to prove everything. During this period, in just half a year, he had grown from a disciple of a clan who had just awakened the power of the surname to someone who was about to enter the ancient rank. This kind of change was obvious. However, in Ziya's eyes, the Spiritual Flame Academy was extremely important. Under the influence of the clan, the Spiritual Flame Academy was practically the ultimate dream of those disciples of remote clans. Ziya glanced at Chunyu Xianxian, gritted her teeth, and said, No need. Since Uncle Qin wants us to leave, we will go directly to Nanjong Manor. The merfolk should not be able to do anything to Uncle Qin. At that time, we will wait for Uncle Qin at Nanjong Manor. Although she said this, Ziya still felt a deep sense of loss in her heart. She had a feeling that after bidding farewell to this teacher who was both a teacher and a friend today, when they met the next day, everything would be different. Chunyu Xianxian immediately stopped talking. Ziya's words made sense. If the two of them stayed, they might only be a burden to Lord Qin Feng. The two of them had been together for a long time, and Chunyu Xianxian already had a hazy good impression of Ziya. The young girl's heart was inextricably linked to the young man. The captain of the ship and many of the sailors had already received a warning. When they learned that the merfolk were rushing over, they immediately sped up. The large ship flowed down the torrent, and in the blink of an eye, only a small black that was left in their field of vision. Luo Chang's beautiful eyes looked at this scene indifferently, and there was a trace of a sneer in her eyes. At this time, Ziya and Chunyu Xianxian were still a little immature. They did not see the Lord's intention to leave and missed the opportunity to hug his thigh for no reason. Only she, who had been reborn once, could vaguely sense how thick this golden thigh was. Standing above the torrent, Qin Feng stood with his hands behind his back. His expression was indifferent, as if he did not notice Luo Chang's little thoughts. Boom! Just a moment after the ship left, a torrent of water suddenly surged into the sky. Several surging waves of water swept up dozens of feet, drowning the two of them. You're tuning in to the Warrior Lore YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.